Audiobook by Fate's Reader. Don't forget to subscribe and like the channel for more epic series. Drop your recommended novel below. We love to know what you want to hear next. Tales of Herding Gods. Chapter 551, Fatty Dragon, Black Tiger, and the Fox. Soon, Qin Mu knocked out a devil divine arts practitioner and stripped his clothes. He changed appearance and just walked flamboyantly through the devil lands while they swarmed toward the abyss. There had been a sudden change in that area. The activity was noticed by everyone, and the whole city was alarmed. Even though the events happened fast and stopped soon, the power that had burst forth had been extremely terrifying. Whoosh! Two devil gods flew toward the abyss. Numerous devils who had wings followed right after them. Qin Mu went against the crowd, slowly squeezing forward. In time, he walked out of the crowd and moved toward the city gate. He didn't dare to fly as he was in the city of the devils. He didn't know how many devil gods or experts of divine bridge realm and life and death realm were hiding around. Even the gods of Supreme Emperor Heaven wouldn't dare to be reckless here, so he could only slowly inch forward. While doing that, he became anxious again. When the two devil gods reached the bottom of the abyss, they would find the fainted Fu Riluo, and it wouldn't take them but a moment to bring him back to consciousness. When the devil god opened his eyes, he would definitely order a lockdown on all cities to look for Qin Mu. If he couldn't leave before the order for the lockdown was given, he might not be able to escape at all. The city had once been a divine city of Supreme Emperor Heaven, and it was unbelievably vast. It would take him some time to reach its outer walls. Qin Mu hurried until he finally came to the city gate. At that moment, a shout came from the abyss. Respectable king has commanded to immediately lock down the whole city. Restrict all devils from going out. Activate the formation. Lock down the city, the ground, the sky. Lock down all of them so even a mosquito would have to forget about going out. Qin Mu's expression changed slightly as he looked at the city gate. There were numerous strong workers of the devil race pushing the huge city gate forcefully to shut it. On the towers and other tall buildings, formation markings and runes lighted up. They flowed down from the tops of the buildings like water and went toward the city walls. Once the formation and rune markings on the city wall lighted up, beams of dazzling lights shot into the sky. Between the markings, a huge space barrier began forming in the sky. At the base of the wall, there were quite a number of rune and formation markings flowing into the ground. Even the capital city of Eternal Peace didn't have such defensive preparations. If the formation markings in the sky fused with the formation markings in the ground, Qin Mu would have to forget about leaving the city. He seemed to suddenly melt, turning into a black shadow that moved quickly along the corner of the wall. It was heading straight for the city gate. Gates were huge and heavy. Even with dozens of strong devil workers working together, they could only slowly push it closed. The strong workers had cultivated corporeal body divine arts and had boundless strength, not spells and spirit weapons. They only cultivate their muscles and bones, raising their physical strength. There were similar strong workers in the army of Heavenly Saint Cult and Eternal Peace Empire. When a couple who had cultivated their strength to the extreme, they could even carry a stone statue that was the corporeal body of a god. Yet the city gate of this divine city required dozens of strong workers to push it. The shadow that was Qin Mu leaped through the shadows of the buildings like a phantom. He seemed akin to a spirit that was rushing to the bottom of the city gate. Before it closed, he had to leave or else he would have no way out. With the effort of the numerous strong devil workers, the gate was about to be closed. There was only a small gap left between the two huge doors. Suddenly, a shiny bead rolled over and got jammed right between the two doors, preventing it from being closed. A strong worker beside the door saw this and kicked the bead out of the city. He grumbled and pushed the huge doors shut. It's just that he didn't see that when he kicked, his shadow had rolled out together with the bead, fusing with the shadow of the bead. The bead continued to roll for over 30 yards. It rolled to the side of the moat and gradually stopped there. The oval-shaped shadow under the bead suddenly grew limbs, and its two shadow-like arms became longer and longer. They soon put force on the shiny bead, and it rolled forward and dropped into the river with a plop. After a moment, in the shadow on the opposite the moat, A pitch-black shadow crawled out and moved close to the ground. Soon, the city gate opened wide and countless devils rushed out of the city. That person is not in the city. Find him immediately. We can't let him leave our territory. Qin Mu hid and dodged, avoiding all the watchtowers. He utilized his phantom illusion technique to its extreme for that. In time, he went up high and looked afar, but he still couldn't see Li City. Fu Riluo had brought me to the territory of the devils. But where exactly is this place? How far is it from the human territory? The land was vast and the sky was dim. The sun in the east was cold as it gradually became red, signaling the coming of night. Qin Mu composed himself and hid his figure. Supreme Emperor Heaven doesn't have even one star, so it's hard to orient oneself. I can only hurry on my way in the morning. The scouts of the devil race searched everywhere while Qin Mu hid here and there. When he was about to be discovered, he killed the devil scout and changed into his thick black iron armor. With the helmet and a long black iron devil spear hanging on the hooks of the horse, he roamed on a devil fire nightmare through the fog of the devil territory. On the second day, the ugly broken sun lit up as usual, and Qin Mu pushed open the face cover of the black iron helmet to orient himself. He used devil language to steer the devil fire nightmare toward the east. When afternoon came, Qin Mu raised his head toward the sun, and his face changed drastically. The broken sun in the east had suddenly extinguished. Imperial Preceptor, aren't you being a little too efficient? Qin Mu almost spewed out a mouthful of old blood. He had told Imperial Preceptor to assist Supreme Emperor Heaven in designing two suns, so the broken sun's disappearance from the sky was definitely linked to him. This had to be because Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor found the sun unbearable to look at and summoned all of the divine arts practitioners to Supreme Emperor Heaven to get rid of the thing and reforge it. With the sun gone, it was almost impossible for Qin Mu to orient himself. In Li City, flames blazed and lit up the darkness. With the light of Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge connecting Supreme Emperor Heaven with Great Ruins, numerous divine arts practitioners were pouring in from Eternal Peace. They had built a huge factory beside Li City and begun forging giants as well as all kinds of components day and night. True God Pang Yu fetched the blueprints that nobody understood. They displayed Sun Great Furnace and were left behind by Sun Forger God. The god hadn't had time to finish forging the second sun before he was assassinated by the devils, but luckily his blueprints had survived. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor summoned numerous divine arts practitioners skilled in algebra and recalculated, improving the blueprints. He set extremely high requirements for precision. What the divine arts practitioners of Li City were forging was the Sun Great Furnace. My lord, I've lost junior brother. On the city tower of Li City, the black tiger god tumbled to the ground and transformed into a little black tiger that was only a foot tall. It had black and yellow stripes running down his body. He lighted up a stick of incense and prayed respectfully. The smoke of the incense rose in spirals and condensed into a cloud above him. It transformed into Saint Woodcutter's face, which was staring at him expressionlessly. The little tiger bowed his head and glued his ears together at the back of his head, not daring to speak. After a moment, Saint Woodcutter's voice reached him. What do I need you for? The black tiger god felt his blood run cold and hurriedly said, Don't worry, my lord. I will definitely find junior brother Qin. After the smoke dispersed, Saint Woodcutter's voice spoke again. I've gone to the world of the devils, and I'm temporarily unable to return. If I come back and don't see that disciple of mine, you shall stay in this form forever and can forget about turning back. The black tiger god let out a sigh of relief. At this moment, he heard a crisp and loud voice from afar. Fatty dragon, even though young master is in this world, won't you starve if we don't find him after you had eaten all your spirit pills in one go? There was a chuckle, and another muffled voice spoke. Sister Linger, you might not have noticed, but when I had painstakingly snatched back some of my spirit pills from the devil general in the chest, I've only dared to eat a spirit pill a day. I've already starved to the point that I'm only bones. Look, take a look. I'm much skinnier than before. To prevent young master from not being able to recognize me, I had decided to eat all of the remaining spirit pills. Yet even so, I'm worried that I won't recover to my previous state. I've heard young master is lost. If we can't find him, you'll starve to death. Cult master is so clever. How could he be lost? The black tiger god looked toward the source of the voices. He first saw a huge chest, then a behemoth with a huge tummy. When he walked up the city tower, his fats were jiggling randomly. It seemed like a huge monster that had the bloodline of a dragon and a qilin. On the head of this fatty sat an adorable little girl that looked to be 5 or 6 years old. She had 6 snow-white fox tails behind her, and there were 2 furry ears on her head. Xianxia, Yuhi, and the rest were following behind. There were 2 young girls he had not seen before among them. The little girl with the furry tail and furry ears saw him, and her eyes couldn't help shining brightly. She jumped down from the big fatty's head and giggled as she rushed straight for the black tiger god. She clapped her hands and said with a smile, "What a cute little tigwar. Let me hug you." The black tiger god smelt the odor of a fox, and his face turned black. He trembled and transformed into a beautiful and big black tiger that was over 30 yards large. He roared toward the sky, and his god aura and fierceness assaulted the surrounding area. The expression of the little fox demon changed drastically, and she turned around to run toward the unfamiliar girls. She jumped into the embrace of one of them before starting to bawl. "Big Tigwar." The young girl turned the demon fox away from him while the big fatty sat down on his buttocks and raised his head to look at the behemoth in front of him in awe. Xianxia hurriedly went forward and said, "Senior Tiger, these few are the friends of Cult Master Qin." The black tiger god dispersed his god aura and fierceness before transforming back into a black tiger youth. He retracted his sharp claws and his ears flapped twice. "I've been scammed by a fox in my early years, so I can't meet a fox demon, pardon me." Little fox demon popped her head out and said with a smile, "I don't scam people." She collected her courage and walked out from Ling Yuxiu's back to examine the black tiger god. "Can I touch your ears?" she asked with curiosity. The black tiger god hesitated before lowering his head. "I've scared you just now, so I'll let you do it." Hu Linger touched them and exclaimed in admiration, "How soft! You guys try touching." Ling Yuxiu hesitated. "Wouldn't this not be good?" After saying that, she encouraged herself to try it and cried out in astonishment. "They're really very soft and smooth." The other girls also stretched out their hands to touch, and the black tiger god felt somewhat comfortable. However, he still didn't think it was proper. He was a demon god after all, and it was quite embarrassing to be touched like this. However, it was indeed very comfortable. The dragon qilin came forward and planned to have a try as well. The black tiger god immediately raised his paw and pressed the fellow on the ground. After a moment, everyone was satisfied, and the black tiger god asked, "How do you guys plan to find junior brother Qin?" "Very simple, primordial spirit assembly," Xianxia said with a smile. Tales of Herding Gods. Chapter 552, Ominous Land. Primordial spirit assembly? The black tiger god was puzzled. He had never heard of this phrase before. Xianxia took out a huge stack of blueprints and laid them out in the city tower. Drawn on them were all kinds of rune markings. This is a technique that cult master and divine arts practitioners of eternal peace work together to create, and it was named Secrets of 3 Primordial Spirit Assembly by the Emperor. Xianxia searched for a moment and found Qin Mu's primordial spirit marking, then took out cinnabar and brush. After dissolving the cinnabar, she started drawing on the pillars of the city tower. Cult master once imprinted everyone's primordial spirit marking in Imperial College's Hall of Supreme Learning. His own marking was also there. Primordial Spirit Assembly uses them to attract a person's primordial spirit over, so everyone could gather with their primordial spirits to discuss matters. Ling Yuxiu took out a stick of incense and stabbed it below the primordial spirit marking, then lit it up. This soul guide incense that Cowherd had created from the divine art soul guide. It is used to bring a primordial spirit over. We want to use it and the markings to make a connection with his primordial spirit, then guide it over her and ask him about his location. The 2 girls looked at each other, and Xianxia released her vital qi. lighting up Qin Mu's primordial spirit marking. Ling Yuxiu in the meantime used her vital qi to wrap the fragrance of soul guide incense to send it into the primordial spirit marking. Everyone waited quietly in the tower and watched the soul guide incense burn down. Its smoke rose in spirals, but the fragrance wasn't too thick, more like refreshing. Incense didn't last for too long, so as the soul guide incense burned down bit by bit, everyone's heart was on tenterhooks. The primordial spirit marking and soul guide incense would invoke a reaction with Qin Mu's primordial spirit, so he would just need to execute secrets of 3 primordial spirit assembly to be able to come to them. However, if he'd met with some bad luck, he wouldn't be able to come to meet them. When soul guide incense was halfway done and there was still no activity, everyone became worried. But at that moment, wind howled and rushed into the city tower. Everyone was delighted. They saw that Qin Mu's primordial spirit was faintly discernible and not stable. Cult Master, where are you? The dragon Qilin was extremely delighted and cried out hurriedly. The spirit pills you have prepared are finished. Come back quickly. I prepared enough pills for 3-4 months for you. So how have you finished them already? This? The dragon Qilin was speechless. Young master, we're looking for you. Where are you now? Hu Linger asked. Qin Mu shook his head. I also don't know. I'm in the devil's territory, but there are no sun, moon, or stars in the sky to orient myself. I was kidnapped by Fu Riluo, but managed to escape with difficulty. Now I'm being pursued by the elites of the devil race, so my primordial spirit can't stay here for long. Everyone frowned greatly. Xianxia suddenly spoke up. Brother who threshes the grains, look at the terrain of the surrounding mountains and remember them. Check if there are any cities around. Supreme Emperor Heaven has 64 cities, and the name of each one is different. The terrain around each city is also different, so whatever you tell us, we'll be able to determine your location. Qin Mu's primordial spirit picked up the cinnabar brush and drew on the ground. He quickly painted the terrain around him. I didn't see any god city. Xianxia, Yuhi, and the rest of the divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven took a look, then shook their heads. They were too young and hadn't been to the devil's territory before. Let me call my father. Xianxia left in a hurry. Suddenly Qin Mu's primordial spirit dimmed. The enemies are here. I need to go back. A gust of violent wind blew out of the city tower, and the primordial spirit disappeared without a trace. Not long later, Xianxia brought God Sangyi over, and he examined the terrain that Qin Mu had drawn in detail. He thought for a moment before crying out, He's near the devil's old nest. He is in Black Sun Mountain Range that's beside Returning Maiden City. Yuhi frowned. Returning Maiden City? Wasn't that God City destroyed? I've heard that that place has become an ominous land. God Sangyi nodded. When the devils invaded, they first appeared in Returning Maiden City and completely destroyed it. In front of Black Sun Mountain Range is the battlefield of Returning Maiden City. That place was the cruelest battlefield in Supreme Emperor Heaven. Close to 1,000 gods and devils died there. The numbers of divine arts practitioners that lost their lives on both sides are uncountable. If he continues walking forward, he will enter that ominous land. Why do you say that place is ominous? Ling Yuxiu asked in puzzlement. Too many gods and devils died there, and their blood has all gathered together, forming an extremely strange zone. It is filled with the undying wills of gods and devils as well as curses and devil nature of the damned souls. So many divine arts practitioners, gods, and devils were lost there that they could make the entire zone light up like day when night falls. There was a hint of terror in his voice when he continued. What light up the night are barn lanterns. They hang on the small boats that come from Yudu. Countless messengers of death sailed around, making that old battlefield a treacherous place. Back then, I had yet to cultivate to the god realm and was only a small soldier. After the huge battle, the place had become incomparably desolate. Young Sangyi had suffered heavy injuries in the battle, and when he woke up, the sky was already dark. When he crawled up from the pile of corpses, he saw an unforgettable sight. Small boats sailed from the darkness, and under their lanterns were thousands of elders that looked exactly the same. They went around silently and reaped the souls from the battlefield. The elders didn't make a sound, yet the night was filled with the wails of countless souls who didn't want to fall into Yudu. However, none of them were spared from the grasp of the messengers of death. They followed the small boats and floated into the darkness of Yudu. God Xianxia could never forget that sight. The broken souls weren't taken away by the messengers of death, so as time went by, that place became an ominous land. There have been numerous strange incidents in there, and numerous peculiar things hide in that place. God Xianxia composed himself before continuing. Afterwards, both us and the devils have given up on that place. If Cult Master Qin continues to go forward, he will step into that ominous land. The dragon Qilin suddenly cried out. The mixing of god blood and devil blood can give birth to terrifying things like Lonely Mountain Ridge Root Demon. Quickly inform Cult Master to avoid that place. The dragon Qilin cried out. How strong is Lonely Mountain Ridge Root Demon? God Xianxia asked. About equivalent to a strong practitioner of life and death realm. God Xianxia sneered. That should only be a little fellow. The things in the ominous land are even stronger than divine arts practitioners of life and death realm. Quickly tell him to avoid that place. Xianxia and Ling Yuxiu hurriedly contacted Qin Mu again, yet, even when the incense had finished burning, he still hadn't responded. He should have encountered enemies, so he doesn't have the time to reply. This is bad, Xianxia said. Those enemies must be strong, and they might even force him into the ominous land. I shall go over there and fetch him back, the Black Tiger God said resolutely. God Xianxia shook his head. You can't go. The journey would be too long, and there are too many variables. If you meet a devil god on the way, even you would die there. It's best if you guys stay here and wait for his primordial spirit to reply, hoping that he will be able to walk out of the ominous land. Only by walking out could he have the chance to survive. The Black Tiger God frowned and shook his head. I was the one that lost him. I need to find him. Xianxia and Ling Yuxiu looked at each other and said in unison, We'll follow you. Me too. Hu Linger raised her tails and looked at her companion. The dragon Qilin hesitated. Hu Linger's eyes narrowed, and she said gently, Fatty dragon, if we can't find young master, you will have to starve. The dragon Qilin was instantly full of vitality. Count me in. Sanghua looked at her father and said, Father, they are unfamiliar with this place. God Xianxia felt a headache coming. Just be careful. A day after you guys enter the devil's territory, I will lead troops to attack and attract their attention. You guys will be safer that way. At the borders of the ominous land, the devil fire nightmare under Qin Mu let out a cry when its legs were cut off by a series of knife lights. A devil divine arts practitioner sliced open the horse's belly and attacked Qin Mu, who was on its back. Qin Mu leaped up while pressing down with his palm. He shattered the devil along with the horse in a single move. Whoosh! An old woman rushed over with a huge calabash. Blood light poured out from it like a flood and drowned Qin Mu out. With a bloody stink, it swirled frantically before taking the shape of a huge crimson python that coiled around Qin Mu, snapping his bones. Formation markings swirled in Qin Mu's eyes, and sun rose from the Milky Way. Two beams of light shot out. One severed the head of the snake while the other severed the neck of the old woman. A scorpion lady swung her barbed tail, and it pierced through Qin Mu's shoulder, lifting him up high. She smashed him ruthlessly onto the ground, and a devil youth carrying 8 big flags bowed toward Qin Mu. The 8 flags flew out and poles stabbed into the ground around Qin Mu. Devil connecting mountain formation. Suppress, 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 suppress. When the devil youth shouted the word 8 times, 8 mountain apparitions descended from the sky with loud explosions. The ground trembled from them. Suddenly, countless stars flashed in the apparitions of the 8 mountains and transformed into great overarching heavenly stars force field. With a palm of Qin Mu, the 8 mountains shattered. He rushed out of the flag formation and saw over a dozen knife pellets swirling furiously toward him. He hurriedly pointed his hand in that direction, and a huge fixed word appeared in the air. The dozens of knife pellets froze in the air. The next moment, though, they began to spin and countless devil knives shot out, slashing the fixed word into pieces. Qin Mu turned, and, stepping on stars, he avoided the countless devil knives by a hair's breadth. His sword pellet flew up then. Sweeping against the wind, it shattered all the blades in the air. Over a dozen devil soldiers with 3 heads and 4 arms rushed over. They advanced and retreated, attacked and defended as they fought furiously with Qin Mu. He blocked over and over again, suffering from dozens of blows in the blink of an eye. He then hurriedly escaped underground. The 4-armed devils pressed their hands against it, causing the ground to bulge up, and Qin Mu was forced out. He leaped into midair, but crashed down a moment later. He moved like a dragon and slithered like a snake, rushing into a huge swamp before him. Numerous devil soldiers chased him to the side of the big swamp, but suddenly they all stopped and frowned. "Should we go in?" a devil divine arts practitioner asked in a low voice. Qin Mu walked into the huge swamp and looked around. There were thick fog and devil chi all around. Below the clear water, corpses floated. They would occasionally pop out onto the surface of the swamp, revealing their skeletons and some rusted spirit weapons. He pondered for a moment before coming closer. He gently knocked the skeleton on the ground and asked with a smile, "This brother, how do I navigate here?" The skeleton sat up and turned to look at him. He opened his mouth. "This is the road to the Yellow Springs. You can enter, but there's no return." Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 553, Awakening the Dead. Qin Mu sat beside the skeleton and took out ointments to treat his own injuries. "I'm originally from the Yellow Spring, so why should I be scared of them?" he said with a smile. The skeleton stood up and said, "This place is an ominous land in which no one can survive. The only way for you to live is to immediately turn around and leave." Qin Mu squeezed the spoiled blood from his wounds and pulled out the devil chi. "Going back is then the path to death, so I will still have a chance if I advance forward. Do you know which path is safer?" The skeleton shook its head. Qin Mu finished applying medicine to himself and executed his vital chi. He circulated it 1 round, and when his wounds didn't burst open, he stood up. "Do you know where's north, south, east, and west?" "That's east." The skeleton pointed his finger forward. "Thank you." Qin Mu turned in the direction the skeleton had pointed out and begun walking. 2 steps later, he stopped and turned back with a smile. "Brother, why are you following me?" The skeleton was right behind him. It hurriedly stopped when it saw him stop. "I was in a daze and couldn't remember what had happened to me when I was alive, but now I've recalled some hazy memories. And since you're the one that awoke me, I naturally have to follow you." Qin Mu burst out laughing. "Humans and ghosts walk different paths. You can't keep following me, so just go back to sleep. When I was in a daze, I could sleep and not care about the seasons or the battles of the world. However, you awakened me and now I can't sleep. You have disturbed my slumber and have to take responsibility for that. You're such an unreasonable ghost." Feeling helpless, Qin Mu turned around and explained seriously, "I saw that you still had some soul, so I used 10,000 spirit nature technique to wake you up to ask for directions. However, you don't know anything. You can't show me the path that would keep me alive. Besides, you're dead. So even if I manage to leave this ominous land alive, you won't be able to follow me to the world of the living. Brother, you're already dead, so just go back to sleep." The skeleton shook his head. "I had no worries before, but you woke me up and now I worry again. You need to help me settle it." Qin Mu's head ached, but he still said with a smile, "In that case, I will execute 10,000 spirit nature technique to pull out your broken soul, allowing you to go back to heaven and earth. You will be returned to slumber." "How's that?" "No," the skeleton shook his head. "Since I've already awoken, dispersing my soul is the same as killing me. That pain of it I'm not willing." Qin Mu truly had a headache. He turned around and continued to head east. Behind him, the skeleton continued to follow him. Since he felt troubled, Qin Mu wanted to try persuading the skeleton again, but water churned from both sides of the swamp. A corpse that had soaked in the water until it was snow-white stood up and looked straight at him. Qin Mu's heart swiveled up. The people in the swamp had died countless years ago, yet their corpses had yet to decompose. The armor on their bodies was tattered, but present, and their eyes still glowed with blood light, their sinister air evident. The corpses had been extremely powerful when they were alive, so their corpses also had a thick aura after death. They were extremely terrifying. Suddenly, the huge skeleton behind Qin Mu let out a loud roar. The corpses in the water seemed to have received an order and sank into the water one after another. Qin Mu was astonished. Why do they listen to you? The skeleton was also in a daze. He thought for a moment, then said, I can faintly remember that they are my subordinates that died here alongside me. I saw that they wanted to hurt you, so I scolded them. Luckily, they still listened to me. Qin Mu became interested and asked with a smile, Who were you before you died? Do you still remember? The skeleton pondered over it, but then shook his head. I don't remember. Qin Mu's interest grew even greater, and he stopped in his footsteps. I have a divine art that can establish access to Yudu, allowing broken souls to gather. Let me cast it, and I might be able to let you remember some stuff. If you manage that, you won't have to follow me anymore. Delighted, the skeleton said with a smile. If I could do so, I would definitely repay this huge favor. Qin Mu plucked down his hairpin and let his hair fall around his shoulders. He then took up his Saturn Sovereign true form with Gate of Heaven influence behind him. After that, he cast Soul Guide of 9 Spectres sect with low-spoken and cryptic devil language. When he was halfway through his chant, his heart suddenly shook. He felt like there was some unfamiliar knowledge in his mind. When he subconsciously used it, his devil language became even more ancient and cryptic. The devil chi around him became thicker and thicker, purer and purer. It rolled and spread throughout the swamp like a sea of pitch black. The Gate of Heaven influence also became more and more majestic as it stood in the sea of devil chi. With creaks, the incomparably heavy door slowly opened up. In the darkness, shrieks could be heard. Incomparably miserable ghost-like wails and wolf-like howls of countless spirit poured out from the Gate of Heaven influence. Qin Mu jumped in shock. So many spirits? They flooded out from Yudu and gathered in the huge swamp. In an instant, it was full of phosphorescence, making it look like it was filled with bright stars. They flew around in the darkness of the devil chi and tunneled into the corpses. Countless corpses stood up and looked around in a daze. Tens of thousands of beings had risen in the desolate swamp. Some stood on the water, some floated in the sky, and some sat on the ground in a daze. Who is disturbing the peace of Yudu? Qin Mu was still casting his spell when a loud voice rang in his mind. It blew him away, and he became muddle-headed. His magic power was instantly cut off, and the Gate of Heaven influence behind him swallowed up the devil chi like a whale swallowing the heaven and earth. Wind swept all of the devil chi back into Yudu. Qin Mu hurriedly dispersed his Saturn Sovereign's form. Never would he have expected that Gate of Heaven influence would remain open and not close. Spots of lamplights came from the darkness in Yudu. They were boats with barn lanterns. Qin Mu's scalp went numb, and he hurriedly reversed his technique, but the Gate of Heaven influence still didn't close. The boats sailed over from the darkness and passed through the Gate of Heaven influence. I remember who I am. Beside him, the skeleton suddenly cried out in delight and laughed loudly. I remember now. Celestial Heavens, Southern Dipper Division. 7 kills Star Sovereign. I was under the order of Founding Emperor to guard Supreme Emperor Heaven and its Provincial Governor Wei Liao. Where's my armor? Where's my battle axe? Boom! The swamp under Qin Mu's suddenly rolled and boundless divine light rushed into the sky. Pieces of battle armor broke through the water and the ground. They flew out from the bottom of the swamp. Clank, clank, clank. Crisp sounds of collision rang out as pieces of broken battle armor covered the body of the skeleton beside Qin Mu. Even a broken helmet flew over to cover his skull. Qin Mu was dumbfounded. Suddenly, a huge mountain split apart in the swamp, and a few broken divine weapon pieces rushed out. They assembled in midair and formed a huge battle axe that came swirling over. The skeleton stretched his hand out and grabbed it. The battle axe represented the authority of Celestial Emperor. On the left was an axe, and on the right was a knife, while on the top was a sharp spear tip with a dragon marking coiling around it. Once the skeleton caught the battle axe, his world-shaking aura burst forth. He raised his weapon and gave it a swing, crumbling the gate of heaven influence behind Qin Mu. He crushed it with brute force and broke the path of Yudu's messengers of death. He then roared with anger, "Where are my soldiers?" The devil Qi in the darkness had dispersed, and countless skeletons stood on the surface of the swamp while looking at him quietly. Suddenly, world-shaking shouts came from all of the corpses. "General, we are here." The skeleton laughed loudly and asked toward the sky, "Where is our majesty?" He waited for a long time, but no one replied to him. After a moment, Qin Mu said, "Provincial Governor, 20,000 years have passed since founding Emperor era." In a daze, the skeleton lowered his head to look at him. He muttered, 20,000 years? Qin Mu's expression filled with pain. "It's been 20,000 years. You guys have been dead for 20,000 years. That hump." The skeleton sat down and muttered to himself, 20,000 years. How did it become like this? The blood we spilled, the lives we risked to stop the enemies. Yet we still not managed to protect our era. Qin Mu sighed. The broken soul of Provincial Governor is undying, and your fighting spirit will live on forever. Today, I have awoken your broken souls and broken spirits, disturbing your peace. You've now returned to the world of the living, but I don't know what I can do about it. Since Provincial Governor was the commander of Supreme Emperor Heaven during founding Emperor era, I believe you won't create trouble for the people. If I live to go back, I will ask King Yama if he could take you guys in. May Provincial Governor restrain his soldiers to this ominous land. Myself, I need to continue forward." He bade farewell and turned to leave. The skeleton was still sitting there dispiritedly, and the will-o'-the-wisps in his eyes flickered as he muttered, 20,000 years. How did it become like this? At the borders of the ominous land, more and more pursuing devils appeared. Soon, there were close to 1,000 devil divine arts practitioners gathered there. However, no one dared to step into the ominous land. After a moment, a violent gale suddenly blew over and stopped. A great general appeared in front of the numerous divine arts practitioners and examined the ominous land. General Xiao Luo. Numerous devils bowed in greeting, feeling both surprised and delighted. The devil general waved his hand and said, "My master Fu Riluo ordered me to chase after Qin Mu while in command of you guys. Now, where is that Qin Mu? He has entered the ominous land." Xiao Luo frowned slightly. He was about to give the order to enter when devil Qi poured out from the depths of the ominous land, creating a devil sea. A huge door stood upright, looking extremely strange. Astonished, Xiao Luo hurriedly stopped. After a moment, that sea of devil Qi vanished without a trace, and the huge door also disappeared. "Ominous land is truly strange and unpredictable," Xiao Luo muttered irresolutely. After a moment, he said with a low voice, "That brat will probably die after barging into this place, but Master gave the order to bring no matter if he's alive or dead, so we need to capture him. Soldiers, listen. Follow me into this ominous land." The 1,000 divine arts practitioners received the command and followed him into the ominous land. Qin Mu was walking through the swamp when he heard the sound of fighting behind him. The shouts were deafening, but they didn't last long. Peace returned shortly, and he had no idea what had happened. "This place is truly strange." Qin Mu shook his head, having no idea that he was the biggest mystery in the whole swamp. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 554, Peak of His Life. What's stranger is that when I was executing Soul Guide, words of the devil language that I had never learned before appeared in my mind. Qin Mu frowned. The sudden knowledge in his head was still there, and it was a kind of extremely ancient language. His heart stirred slightly, and he took up Saturn Sovereign's true form. Gate of Heaven influence appeared behind him, and the apparition of an ancient book took shape in his hand. Qin Mu composed himself and stretched his hand to open the ancient book. When the writing entered his eyes, he immediately felt like the scribbles were rapidly reforming themselves. Every one of the incomparably strange symbols immediately gained meaning, as though he had memorized them by heart. Qin Mu was in a daze. The book had been written in Yudu language, and he had absolutely no knowledge about its writing system. Dutian Devil King had known a little and taught him a phrase which was Gate of Heaven influence. But he had even lied to him, which almost resulted in Qin Mu dying in Yudu. As for the writings in the book, Dutian Devil King had never taught him them. Yet now he understood all of them and was fluent in the language without studying, as though he'd always known it. This ominous land is indeed extremely strange. I couldn't even recognize the words in this book, yet now I can actually read them. The writings on the first page look like a technique, yet they're not like those of a cultivation technique. They might contain some strange knowledge regarding the soul, but it doesn't seem like it either. They're like a divine art. Qin Mu was astonished to no end. The Yudu language in the book was just too strange. It was the first time he had encountered such weird writing that was like those of a technique yet not, like simple knowledge yet not, like a divine art yet not one either. He hesitated for a moment, but he couldn't resist it. He began reading aloud what was written on the first page. His tone was cryptic and profound, with a wonderful rhythm to it. The writings couldn't be expressed with his language because humans simply didn't have similar phrases. Even the meaning was impossible to express, so he could only use Yudu language itself to do so. Qin Mu had just read the first sentence when his soul began palpitating. The vital qi in his body changed, turning into devil qi. Suddenly, waves of sinister wind blew past and gloomy clouds came to hang above his head. The swamp started to churn around him. Qin Mu immediately stopped and looked around. Everything turned back to normal. He continued to read, and the wind returned. The water in the swamp also churned once again like a boiling pot. The gloomy clouds gathered above his head and turned into a swirling whirlpool which attracted devil qi from all directions. A portion of it was like a flood dragon with its tail hanging down as it floated in the center of the whirlpool. Qin Mu's mind trembled. The devil qi had already entered his spirit embryo divine treasure from the heart of his brows and started to merge with the spirit embryo with the power of his voice. The spirit embryo then returned the favor, and the devil qi flowed grandiosely through his 5 elements and 6 directions divine treasures. Even the sun, moon, and stars were tainted by the devil qi and became dim. As Qin Mu continued to read the ancient book, skeletons stood up from the swamp around him. There were also quite a number of corpses that climbed up from beneath the water. He stopped in a hurry from astonishment. He closed the ancient book and dispersed his Saturn sovereign true form to look around carefully. The moment his voice stopped, the corpses and skeletons collapsed back down. Too strange. This ominous land is too strange. Qin Mu composed himself and decided to leave as soon as possible. Maybe if I leave this ominous land, the Yudu words in my head will vanish and I won't recognize the writings in the book anymore. My cultivation seems to have risen slightly. He examined his cultivation and couldn't help becoming astonished. In just a short while, it had actually increased by quite a bit. He had established access between 6 directions divine treasures and 7 stars divine treasure, which made his cultivation extremely dense and not any weaker than that of an expert of celestial being realm. However, the density of his cultivation also caused him to become slightly slower in advancing through his realm. Yet in just a short while, he felt like his cultivation had actually increased by a lot. This kind of advancement could only be described as terrifying. Something is wrong, something is wrong. There's definitely something wrong with this place. There's definitely something strange about the ancient book as well. Qin Mu examined himself in detail and finally found what was wrong. There was actually a shut door in his body. It stood opposite of his spirit embryo divine treasure. It was another spirit embryo divine treasure. This doesn't seem to be right. Isn't it said that everyone only has one spirit embryo divine treasure? Why do I have a second one? I'm also not 2 people. I think no one has told me that humans are not able to have 2 spirit embryo divine treasure. Yes, that's definitely the upside of having overlord body. Qin Mu pushed the explanation of another spirit embryo divine treasure to his overlord body and stopped worrying about it. He roused his vital qi to bombard the door, and a gap opened up. Pure devil qi poured out and merged with his vital qi. Moments later, strange devil voices came from the door and pushed back his cultivation. He immediately stopped. This spirit embryo is the divine treasure of the devil path and not the God path. I have once heard a mysterious God voice, and now it's the devil voices that pushed back my cultivation, not letting me open my spirit embryo divine treasure. I should ask village chief since he understands overlord body the most. He will definitely be able to answer my doubts. Qin Mu temporarily put away this matter and raised his head to look around his surroundings. The provincial governor who had pointed out the direction for him had said that he only needed to walk toward the east to get out of the ominous land. The problem with that was that the vastness of the swamp surpassed Qin Mu's estimation. He oriented himself once more and began walking. After some time, he had covered 1,000 miles, yet he still wasn't out the huge swamp. In that time, he saw over 100 lakes of all sizes. They were traces of ancient battles. When Qin Mu had approached one, he'd felt a terrifying vibration coming from the water. These lakes are traces of fights between the gods and devils. Qin Mu was careful and didn't go closer. The power of the ancient gods and devils' divine arts was still around, resting at the bottom of the lake. It was very unstable, and terrifying things would happen if he stepped onto the lake. But right then, he saw an even stranger sight. Multicolored lights rose from the lake, and a tinkling came from it. The sound reminded him of treasures colliding, which was a very pleasant noise. Qin Mu stopped walking and looked around. He saw the multicolored light becoming thicker and thicker. He could faintly see lotus petals swirling within it, and a huge lotus throne rose from the lake. However, it looked like it had been destroyed, for the petals had fallen off. Yet the lotus throne still had a strange force of attraction which made the petals swirl around it. Meanwhile, in the center of the light, there were weapons colliding with one another like flood dragons. Qin Mu turned and walked along the lakeside. At that moment, peals of laughter came from the lake, and he looked toward the source of the sound to see a couple of girls covered only in veils. They were playing near the lake, and some of them jumped into the water. Others sat on the surface and played around with each other. Qin Mu's eyes lit up, and he took out his brush, ink, paper, and inkstone to start drawing. After a moment, he finished a painting of a lake and girls bathing. It also had the lotus throne. He then jumped into the painting and began to play with the girls there with satisfaction. The painting was erected beside the lake. In it, the youth was as pleased as Punch. He sat on the lotus throne while the girls leaned against it. He hugged them left and right, and even put the extraordinary spirit weapons into his Taotai sack. He was truly at the peak of his life. Light surged on the lake, and suddenly everything disappeared. There seemed to be some huge monster moving under the lake, closing in rapidly. It looked like a small island was moving. Whoosh! The lake split apart, and a huge eyeball jumped out from the water. Flames covered its body, so it was probably an eye of a devil god. Its consciousness could have awakened as time went by, or maybe it had been possessed by some broken soul. Yet what was even weirder was that it had actually grown arms and legs. It had 4 of each. Behind the eye were even 2 pairs of small wings. The creature came to the painting and looked inside, jealousy for Qin Mu growing within it. Cuckoo! The devil eye was beyond excited. Suddenly, it shrunk its body to the size of a face basin and flapped its wings to rush into the painting. It entered with a pop. The moment the devil eye entered the painting, its eye opened up and revealed a huge mouth. It was filled with razor-sharp teeth. Cuckoo! The monster roared. Qin Mu scrambled down from the throne in utter fear and fled for his life. The devil eye was pleased with itself and jumped onto the lotus throne. It pulled the girls to him and embraced them left and right, instantly feeling like it was at the peak of its monster life. Qin Mu jumped out of the painting and wiped away one stroke. The girls and the devil eye monster were instantly fixed in place. What a truly interesting monster. Its abilities are much stronger than mine, but it's a little stupid and doesn't know how treacherous the human heart is. It tried to use treasures and women to tempt me, yet it was enticed by me and delivered itself into the trap. Qin Mu took out his seal and breathed hot mist onto it. He stamped the lower right corner of the painting and sealed it. He then rolled up the paper and placed it in his Taotai sack. The abilities of this monster are no small matter. If I meet an enemy I can't fight, I can release it to fight in my place. Qin Mu continued to walk forward filled with anticipation. If I could find even more ominous objects in this land, I could make great use of them. They're all remarkable treasures. If it was Xing, he would definitely love this place. Come to think of it, it's been a while since I met him. He finally walked out of the swamp and came to the ruin of a city. There were collapsed buildings everywhere, none of which looked like they had been disturbed in a long time. Shattered bones lined the worn-down street. A cold wind blew by, and broken skulls clattered, rolling around. Suddenly, the street cracked open from a long backbone that rose like a dragon. Its ribs acted as legs that sprinted furiously to attack Qin Mu. The tip of the backbone was a fierce-looking skull which should once been the head of a devil god. Its top was filled with bone spikes without any sign of hair. The resulting creature looked incomparably fierce, and it opened its mouth wide when it pounced over. Qin Mu chose to run. As he did so, he saw a battlefield in front of him where countless skeletons were fighting. All kinds of broken spirit weapons clashed, raising sand and dust. Qin Mu wanted to take a detour, but the huge backbone rose into the sky while stepping on devil fire, so he could only grit his teeth and rush into the battlefield. The moment he did so, he knew it had been a horrible decision. Each skeleton that was extremely strong. The weakest one was not much weaker than him. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of drums rushed through the battlefield when two white bone giants that were 300 yards tall pulled out thigh bones and shook their heads with excitement. They used their bones to beat the battle drums. Each hit made a noise like thunder, and the skeletons fighting nearby went into an even greater frenzy. Qin Mu rushed through the fighters while sneaking glances at the devil god's skull with backbone, which was crashing through everyone to reach him. Wei Liao is here. Mere demons and ghosts. Forget about being savage. Qin Mu looked toward the source of the voice and saw 7 kills Star Sovereign with his battle axe in lead of countless corpses and skeletons. With a loud noise, the new army flooded the battlefield, and wherever they passed by, countless shattered skulls flew into the sky. Wei Liao swung his battle axe and smashed the skull of the devil god chasing Qin Mu. He then shouted out loudly, "Live as a hero, die as a heroic ghost. Eradicate these devils and conquer this ominous land. We're going to become the new rulers here." Qin Mu stared with eyes wide open as Wei Liao led everyone through the battlefield. In no time, bones were lying everywhere while the victorious army was grinning. They chose complete bones on the ground to replace their own shattered ones. Wei Liao walked over in large strides and said, "The ominous land is extremely dangerous, little friend. Let us send you off." Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 555. Parting the clouds and mist to see the sky. Tens of thousands of skeletons and corpses surrounded Qin Mu while rushing toward the east like a flood. Wherever they passed, everything was drowned out. The ominous land was filled with all kinds of strange things. They were mostly strange lifeforms formed from the grievances or broken souls of divine arts practitioners that had died in the great battle. These lifeforms were born of the divine arts left behind by the gods and devils, so they were abnormally strong as well as weird and terrifying. It was because the battle had been simply too bitter, and the gods, devils, and divine arts practitioners that had died then were filled with negative emotions which fused with the godly blood, forming the strange place known as the ominous land. The life forms in it also had warped mindsets. During the journey, Qin Mu saw numerous strange objects. There were mountains formed from a mixture of gods and devils' flesh and blood, white bone centipede with hundreds of heads, and a monster with a dragon's head, horse's body, and a long tail which was entirely of bone. However, no matter how powerful these ominous creatures were, 7 kills Star Sovereign dealt death to all of them. They were raised by the happy skeleton and corpse army. The vastness of the ominous land was difficult to imagine. Even though the speed of Qin Mu and the rest wasn't slow, they had to walk for over 2 days to reach the border. Little friend Qin, you just need to head a bit more and you will leave the ominous land. We can't send you any farther than this. Wei Liao stopped and bid farewell in a traditional way. Farewell for now. Qin Mu returned the greeting. Farewell for now. After I leave, I will definitely go to Fengdu and ask King Yama if he can find a place for all of you. Everyone, wait for my news. After he said that, he turned to leave. Wei Liao watched him go, then suddenly said loudly, Little friend Qin, your surname is Qin too. What's your relationship with Founding Emperor? Qin Mu turned back and waved his hand. Founding Emperor is my ancestor. No wonder, no wonder. Wei Liao was slightly stunned and followed the figure walking out of the ominous land with his eyes. He then became excited and cheered repeatedly. My men, let's go. Let's conquer this ominous land and rule it. We'll wait for the arrival of Founding Emperor. Countless skeletons and corpses followed him and cheered as they rushed into the depths of the ominous land that was shrouded in devil qi. Qin Mu turned back to look when he left the strange zone. Terrifying vibrations reached him from the ominous land, which should have come from 7 kills Star Sovereign Wei Liao fighting against some new strange creature. Even though they've died once, they still fight lustily, repaying the benefaction of their sovereign as bones. Truly a heroic bunch. He walked towards the east through the darkness. The ominous land would become the territory of Wei Liao, and it would become like a nail stabbed into the heart of the devils. I still remember that Yudu language. Qin Mu blinked. The Yudu language hadn't disappeared from his mind. Could the strangeness of the ominous land still be following him? Not only that, he could even see the door to the other spirit embryo divine treasure. It was still opposite his original one. So I've mastered Yudu language just like that. Now this is weird. He changed once again into Saturn Sovereign, and Gate of Heaven influence appeared behind him. The ancient book appeared again and he opened it. He silently read page after page, not voicing a single word, and put all of them to memory. After an hour, he memorized the book and dispersed the form of Saturn Sovereign. The Gate of Heaven influence behind him also vanished. I've seen Gate of Heaven influence on the stone statue that was like the Overlord body in Ghost Valley. However, that stone statue was not holding a scroll. Out of all the gods and divine arts practitioners I've seen so far, I'm the only one who has an ancient scroll in my hand when I change into my Saturn Sovereign's form. Qin Mu pondered it for a time, then he suddenly came to a realization. That Overlord body in the underground of Ghost Valley must be like Su Xianxia. They are both pseudo-Overlord bodies. Only true Overlord body would have an ancient scroll in their hand. I shall ask village chief about it when I get back. He should know more than me. After he decided that, he threw the matter to the back of his head. Yudu language came from his mouth again, and he chanted the contents of the book as he sprinted east. Devil chi poured toward him and tunneled into the heart of his brows. This made his cultivation of the devil path increase drastically. This time there was no abnormal situation of the dead coming back to life. That should have been due to the usage of the ancient book. Qin Mu relaxed. As long as he didn't take out the ancient book, the Yudu language would remain as a strange cultivation method. He wouldn't have to worry about disrupting Yudu or being chased by the messengers of death. As he ran furiously, the devil chi flocked to him like signal smoke. He didn't look like a divine arts practitioner, but a great devil rushing on his way. Suddenly, he stopped speaking the Yudu language, and the cryptic god language came out from his mouth instead. His devil vitality struck the door of his spirit embryo divine treasure of the devil path. Devil language instantly rang out within his mind, coming from the depths of the 9 springs below. The voice was strange and disrupted his devil vitality, preventing him from breaking through the door. The god language contained a strange power which could contend with the devil language that had suddenly appeared. Back when Qin Mu had opened his spirit embryo divine treasure, he'd heard god language that seemed to come from the 9 heavens above and disrupted his spirit embryo breakthrough. He had then borrowed devil voice and Buddha voice to forcefully break the wall to be able to cultivate his spirit embryo. That time could only be considered luck. Now, he did the same thing again, and his attainments in God language far surpassed what he possessed back then. He used the God language to deal with the devil voice from the 9 springs below, and everything went smoothly and easily. His devil vitality flowed without obstruction and struck the spirit embryo wall. Boom! Explosions as loud as thunder came from his body when the door to the other spirit embryo divine treasure burst open. The cultivation of his devil path instantly grew exponentially and attracted even more devil chi, while the devil voice from the 9 springs below just stopped. There is no spirit embryo of the devil path in the spirit embryo divine treasure. Qin Mu was astonished. His spirit embryo divine treasure of the devil path was empty, with only a spirit platform. Strange runes of the devil path were carved on it. Overlord Body 3 Elixir Technique. Qin Mu executed it, and the devil vitality in his body surged into the spirit embryo divine treasure of the devil path. Light flashed and his spirit embryo suddenly appeared in the spirit embryo divine treasure, sitting on the spirit platform. It started to breath devil vitality in and out. In almost no time, it formed a devil sun and devil moon. Village Chief is truly remarkable. The Overlord Body 3 Elixir Technique he taught me can also be cultivated for the devil path. Qin Mu was completely in awe of Village Chief. Silently, he exclaimed in admiration, "When can I have so much knowledge and such wide horizons?" Overlord Body 3 Elixir Technique didn't go against the Yudu language that was coming from his mouth. It mobilized devil vitality, and the spirit embryo breathed it in and out. Meanwhile, the Yudu language was leading the devil chi into his body and making his cultivation of the devil path denser and denser. It rose continuously, and not long later, the forms of the devil sun and devil moon in the spirit embryo divine treasure were basically set. They corresponded with the sun and moon of the other spirit embryo divine treasure, looking like mirror reflections. When Qin Mu felt that his cultivation was perfected, he rushed at 5 elements divine treasure, and a loud explosion rang out, signaling the breaking through 5 elements divine treasure. 5 element stars of the devil path rose in the sky and flashed with strange devil light. Qin Mu's Overlord Body 3 Elixir Technique became more and more complicated as he circulated it, and his devil vitality connected to the 5 stars to circulate in a strange way. His cultivation of the devil path grew denser and denser. Cultivating at this speed, I'm afraid that in a few days, my cultivation of the devil path will catch up to the God path. A number of experts were searching him, having formed into groups for their hunt. There were also quite a few devil experts that had seen Qin Mu from afar but hadn't paid any attention. They had no idea that the fellow that was even more devilish than them could be the Qin Mu they were searching for. Qin Mu's road had no obstructions as he continued to head east. After walking for some 6-7 days, a spot of light suddenly appeared in the sky. He raised his head and saw that light growing larger and larger, brighter and brighter. A round sun took shape above him and brought some light to the devil territory. Overjoyed, Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief. This sun is round and not flat. Imperial Preceptor is truly remarkable. He looked at the location where the sun was rising and examined his shadow on the ground. He sprinted another 20 miles and calculated the angle of the shadow. I've over 10,000 miles away from where the sun rose. Fu Riluo indeed has remarkable abilities to be able to kidnap me so far away. The sun in the sky was round, and he had the feeling of clouds having parted to reveal clear blue sky. His mood instantly improved. Suddenly, a god city rose in front of him. There were numerous devils walking to and fro around it. Groups of devils and horses searched in all directions, stopping even the devils crossing to check their identity. Qin Mu frowned slightly and decided to take a detour. Yet the clattering of hooves reached him, and a group of devils rushed over, having seen him from afar. Halt! Qin Mu stopped, and the rider in the lead looked at him. He then shook his head, saying, "It's not who we're looking for. Let's continue." The next moment, he rushed away with the other devil divine arts practitioners. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief, but a familiar voice came from behind him. "You brat, I still need a retainer. Come here. Be my retainer." Slightly stunned, Qin Mu looked toward the source of the voice. He saw a youth carrying a demon knife on his back a short distance away from him. It was none other than Zhihuali. Qin Mu walked over, and the demon eye on the hilt of the demon knife suddenly opened. It swirled till it became crimson, then stared at him excitedly. After a moment, the demon eye closed. Zhihuali walked over and said, "Follow me." Qin Mu hurriedly did as told, and Zhihuali brought him to the east, leaving the god city behind them. There were numerous posts of inspection, but when the devils saw Zhihuali, they didn't ask anything. When they were 100 miles to the east of the city, Zhihuali stopped and said indifferently, "You can continue to head east." Qin Mu heading forward according to his words. Soon he felt a pair of eyes landing on his body, like two knives stabbing into him. His muscles went stiff, then twitched twice and shattered the knife will. When it shattered, it actually gave off crisp clinks. "It is you," Zhihuali said from behind him. Qin Mu scattered the devil chi around him and said with a smile, "Zhihuali, your knife skills have improved a lot." The young man's gaze had been like a knife, which gave Qin Mu no choice but to shatter it. After Li City, Zhihuali's knife skills had obviously improved by leaps and bounds. Brother Qin escaping from enveloping city and even surviving the crossing through the ominous land is truly astonishing. After the parting in Li City, I examined your sword skill in detail. Opening Calamity sword skill is truly strong, but I also have my own comprehension, Zhihuali said indifferently. I won't let you die in the hands of other people. Only I can kill you. All the disciples of the devil gods in Supreme Emperor Heaven are looking for you. Don't die on the way. Much thanks. Qin Mu bowed. Zhihuali didn't accept it and just left in a flash. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 556, First Success of Overlord Body. Qin Mu looked at his back that was leaving, then suddenly asked, "Zhihuali, don't you want to show me your master's knife skill?" Zhihuali stopped and turned his head back to say, "No, I want you to see my knife skills." Qin Mu smiled and said leisurely, "When you told me you want to let me see Luo Wushuang's knife skills, I knew you were not my opponent. That's because the knife skills belong to Luo Wushuang and not you. No matter how perfect you cultivated them, they will still belong to Luo Wushuang. Now you want me to see your knife skills, so you finally have the right to be my opponent. All right, I'll wait for you." Zhihuali left, but his voice still reached Qin Mu. "Don't die. Master Fu Riluo has declared a bounty for you, and numerous disciples of devil gods are waiting on the road in front for you. This fellow is much cuter than his master Luo Wushuang. His knife skills have improved a lot as well, advancing at a godly speed." Qin Mu saw him off and felt a heavy pressure settle on him. His muscles trembled, and he shattered the knife will from Zhihuali's eyes. There were even crisp cracking sounds as though the man's gaze had materialized. Such speed was very terrifying. Zhihuali's improvement on his knife path was extremely great, and he had the corporeal body and primordial spirit of a young true god. If he entered the extreme boundary of his knife skills, it would be impossible for Qin Mu to defeat him. He had already stepped into the boundary of his knife skills, so if he took another step forward, he would create his own knife skill, like how Qin Mu had created Calamity Sword. He would also found his own knife skills, and they would be close to the path. The reason Zhihuali improved at such a godly speed was because of the pressure he felt from Qin Mu. But now the tables had turned. It was Qin Mu's turn to feel pressured by Zhihuali. The weakest point of my corporeal body is that I'm training all parts separately. My hands are hands, legs are legs, eyes are eyes, and heart is heart. I can't unify all of the power into one. If I could do that, my corporeal body would not be any weaker than those so-called young true gods and young true devils. I would even be stronger than them. Qin Mu headed toward the sun while thinking. The reason Zhihuali, Yuhi, and the rest had such strong corporeal bodies was because the techniques they cultivated had been imparted to them by gods and devils. These techniques had gone through years of refinement and could train every aspect of the body to the extreme. Zhihuali, Yuhi, and the rest of the young experts didn't need to think why their technique had to be circulated in a certain way, just to cultivate it according to the instruction. This was enough for their corporeal bodies to reach an extremely high realm. However, it was different for Qin Mu. He had only learned the first technique of Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique from Village Chief. It had only techniques but no skills or divine arts. He mixed and matched, fusing a whole bunch when he had the chance. Good and bad came out from it, but in the end, his Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique was king of rubbish. It was like the clothes of a beggar which were filled with holes and had to be mended frequently. Later, he had learned great educational heavenly devil scriptures and comprehended unity technique. He then realized from Qin Hanjin that they were the skills of Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. Only at that time could Qin Mu's technique be considered to have taken shape. When he received the True Dragon's Nest and merged the technique of the True Dragon Lord with Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, the latter was patched up in a lot of places. Yet there were too many patches. Fist skills were fist skills, leg skills were leg skills, and divine eyes were divine eyes. Ultimately, it was still the problem of his technique that had caused his corporeal body to be inferior to those of Yu He, Zhehuali, and the rest. It was even slightly inferior to that of Sanghua. His thinking was all over the place. He could come up with things that others couldn't and think what others didn't dare to think. He wasn't restrained by tradition, so he was able to create Primordial Spirit Guide, the 18th Sword Form, Secrets of 3 Primordial Spirit Assembly, and all kinds of other strange techniques and divine arts. It was also why he could create such a huge artifact like Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge to connect the two worlds together. However, it was also because his thinking was everywhere that his technique was lacking. I've already settled the problem of my sword skill entering the path. I just need to comprehend along the lines of Calamity Sword. Now the problem is about how to make my technique enter the path. Qin Mu stopped, his expression turned blank. He went into a daze. Suddenly, his vital qi flowed out and quickly formed his spirit embryo divine treasure in front of him. It showed up with all details, and even the sun and moon were constructed. Next, his vital qi flow spread outwards, raising metal, wood, water, fire, and earth stars. The spirit platform expanded into a large field and established the 6 directions. The 5 stars and the sun and the moon orbited around each other. With this as the foundation, Qin Mu's fingers came together, and he refined his qi into a thread to surround his spirit embryo, 5 elements, 6 directions, constructing the circulation path of his vital qi continuously. After a moment, he had an incomparably complicated network of his vital qi circulation. It resembled blood vessels surrounding the 3 great divine treasures to form the shape of a human body. There was the path of circulation of his Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. His technique was extremely complicated, which was why the network he had constructed was also extremely complicated. Qin Mu measured and fixed some places that had mistakes. Next, his vital qi flowed out to create his bones and organs before creating the flesh, blood, tendons, and blood vessels in the incomparably complicated human body network. His 5 fingers spread open, and the human body in front of him became 10 yards tall. It was incomparably clear. As Qin Mu walked around it, he got rid of the overlapping branches and combined some paths of circulation, making his Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique less complicated. Then, he examined it thoroughly and added some paths where his vital qi circulation couldn't reach when he was training his corporeal body. The more places he fixed, the more paths he removed. Qin Mu became more and more excited. His spirit embryo was moving quickly throughout his body to survey its structure as he was continuously tweaking the vital qi human body. After a long time, his spirit embryo returned to his divine treasure and sat on the spirit platform. Qin Mu's hands separated, and the flesh, blood, and bones of the vital qi human body dispersed one after another. Only the vital qi network and the structure of 3 great divine treasures remained. His devil vitality then flew out and constructed the spirit embryo divine treasure of the devil path, corresponding to spirit embryo divine treasure. With the 2 as reflections of one another, he continued to modify. When he felt they were perfect, Qin Mu executed this new Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique that had undergone a complete revamp by him. He carefully experienced what was lacking when he circulated it and did modifications on the vital qi human body. He tried continuously to make his technique even more perfect. His vital qi circulation gradually became less complicated and more effective. After the improvements, it could refine basically every corner of his corporeal body. My technique is still not perfect enough. In regards to the circulation of the devil vitality, there are still many places that can be improved. The vital chi circulation in the divine eyes is also another extremely complicated matter. After trying everything out, he discovered numerous places in which he was lacking. He cared for nothing but improving himself at that moment. Qin Mu. Suddenly a few devils took notice of him from afar. One of them laughed loudly in delight. We've traveled far and wide to look for you only to find you easily. Today is the day when I, Tuo Shu, shall claim my achievement. Qin Mu, fight me. Qin Mu paid him no attention, his 10 fingers moving up and down as he improved the network of the vital chi human body while continuing to move forward. Tuo Shu frowned and flew up. 2 huge black wings spread out, and he flew over while flapping them. Qin Mu didn't notice at all. Tuo Shu cried out and came to only dozens of yards in front of the youth. Suddenly, he flipped around, and countless feather swords flew out from his wings, all aimed at Qin Mu. Disciple of Devil God Xiao Qi, Azura Division Tuo Shu. Much obliged. Tuo Shu announced his name, but he saw that Qin Mu's footsteps did not change in the least, and he also paid no attention to the feather swords. However, when they came to his side, he suddenly moved in a peculiar manner and avoided the countless feather swords. The devil's sword skills actually couldn't hurt him at all. Whoosh! Qin Mu passed by, his eyes still focused on the network of the vital chi human body in front of him. His vision was filled with vigor, and his 5 fingers were gently raised. The network of the vital chi human body dispersed, leaving only the 2 networks of the divine eyes formation formed by the vital chi. In the center of the network was a cluster of stars. The sun was in the center, and the outer layer was the system of formation markings of the heavens. This was the divine eyes technique that Blind had created by fusing his 9 heavens eyes awakening skill with Ziqing's number 1 divine eyes. Qin Mu's spirit was highly stimulated, and he was highly concentrated on improving the path of his vital chi circulation, so he paid no attention to Tuo Shu, who he had just passed. Tuo Shu's wings were like knives with which he slashed repeatedly. His body flipped and tumbled as he used different techniques. Sometimes he swirled to slash horizontally, while at other times he spun like a top. His knife skills were incomparably intricate. Feather changed into swords, and the devil danced around Qin Mu. His sword skills were also extremely intricate. Devil God Xiao Qi was known as Knife and Sword Absolute. As a disciple, Tuo Shu was also cultivating both knife and sword. However, Qin Mu's body twisted, and his footsteps became more strange. He walked out of Tuo Shu's range of attack before the other could even manage to land a hit. The devil couldn't help becoming stunned. The other devils rushed over, and they all attacked together. They were all experts and proud disciples that the devil gods had diligently taught. One devil roared fiercely and transformed into a magma giant. Devil flames surrounded him, and balls of devil fire danced around his body. He punched, and the devil fire exploded with world-shaking power. Another devil divine arts practitioner had a devil dragon coiling around his body. It flew off him and danced here and there. In just a breath's time, it covered dozens of yards. When it breathed in and out, its attacks were strange and unpredictable. There was also an 8-clawed woman that spat out webs which were incomparably sharp. She laid down a huge formation. After a moment, all of them were left in a daze. They couldn't touch Qin Mu at all. He had stepped into the spider threads and entered the killing formation, yet he avoided the relentless attacks of the spider lady and walked out like nothing, leaving the spider lady in a daze behind him. He then came face to face with the magma giant. Stepping on his fist, he walked up his arm to his face and left down his back. The devil expert that cultivated the devil dragon divine art didn't even manage to touch him, and just saw the excited human brat brushing past him. Cold sweat rolled down everyone's forehead. Tuo Shu chased after Qin Mu, who was in front of him, while shouting sternly, "Inform the other experts." The magma giant gave a loud roar and punched his fist into the sky. A ball of devil fire exploded and transformed into a blazing devil eye that had an area of dozens of fields. Many devil experts in the distance were alarmed and all rushed over. In no time, 100 devil experts were chasing after Qin Mu, and one had a huge river surging in midair. It held the water of yellow springs refined into a spirit weapon. The river rushed at Qin Mu, but he stood on the tip of the river and got sent far away. Earthquake, heavenly stars. A strong devil practitioner raised his hands up high, and meteors came falling from the sky. As they rushed down with billowing smoke, they crashed onto the ground and caused huge tremors. Qin Mu walked through the meteors without any injuries. Life-taking spirits. An old woman waved her white bone banner, and countless spirits flew out. They shuttled back and forth, flooding Qin Mu. Seconds later, walked out of them without a scratch. Blood skeletons. Another person opened up his calabash, and countless bloody skulls flew out. They pounced at Qin Mu, but they also couldn't keep him back. A bunch of idiots. Suddenly a devil expert sneered and said, "There's no use attacking him now that he is comprehending his Tao. Those strange vital chi eyes in front of him are his comprehension. So destroy them." Everyone's spirit was roused, and they threw their divine arts in that direction. The huge eyes constructed by Qin Mu's vital chi were instantly shattered. Everyone was delighted when they saw the muddle-headed Qin Mu finally stop. He slowly raised his head. "You guys?" Qin Mu was still slightly confused, but it quickly changed into anger. He seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, crying yet not crying. "You guys dared to disturb me when I was comprehending my technique." The devil expert that had made everyone aware that Qin Mu was comprehending his Tao immediately became excited and shouted. Now that he has been broken out of his comprehension, his body movements and divine arts are all much weaker. "Kill him!" Everyone pounced over. Sword light shone, followed by Qin Mu's furious voice. "You guys are seeking death." Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 557. Being a little reckless, using a little poison. The snow-bright sword light burst forth like a small sun and rapidly expanded. Once it covered over a dozen yards, it rapidly shrunk back. The next moment, it became a sword pellet in front of Qin Mu's heart of brows. It gave off intense rays and burst forth once more. Whoosh! The sword light that burst forth then surpassed 300 yards, and the 100 devil experts shouted furiously. They executed all kinds of techniques to block the terrifying sword light. Sounds of collision rang out one after another. "There's no need to be afraid of him," the devil expert that had called for breaking Qin Mu's comprehension shouted out. "I have also experienced comprehending Tao before. During it, the body will become one with the Tao, so any action would contain the marvel of Tao, making it hard to hit the person. But now that he has left the Tao, he's a mere mortal. We can get rid of him easily." The flying swords spread out, and everyone had 70 to 80 of them around them, executing all kinds of basic sword forms. Even though the moves were extremely simple, there were thousands of different ways to attack. Different flying swords had different combinations, and the moves everyone received were different. At that moment, Qin Mu's body moved like a phantom among the 8,000 flying swords, and time seemed to slow down. The flying swords were like petals that were slowly floating in his eyes. The postures, attacks, and divine arts of every devil expert had become abnormally slow. Like what the expert that had broken Qin Mu's comprehension had said, once a person was forced out of the realm of comprehending Tao, they wouldn't be able to maintain the state of body and Tao as one. However, what the expert didn't expect was that Qin Mu hadn't been comprehending his paths, skills, and divine arts. He had been comprehending his technique. He had been entering the path with his technique. Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique was abnormally marvelous from the start and brought Qin Mu incomparably dense cultivation in magic power. It had also allowed his primordial spirit to surpass those of his peers. Otherwise, Qin Mu wouldn't have been able to slay 4 young true devils while possessing an inferior corporeal body. Right then he had comprehended his technique and brought it to the level of path, patching up this problem of his. His corporeal body reached a state of perfection. All his body parts could stand alone or unite, allowing him to combine all of the power and energy in them. His speed reached its extreme and far surpassed what it was previously. The strong devil practitioners who were defending against the swords could only see a line of Qin Mu's sprinting forward. Qin Mu grabbed a flying sword and stabbed forward with it. Blood suddenly spurted out from the throat of a devil expert who had been defending against the attacks of the flying swords around him. By the next instant, Qin Mu had already let go of the flying sword and went to the back of the second person. He picked another sword, and it pierced the back of a devil's heart, penetrating all the way to come out the other side. Boom! Qin Mu clashed face to face with a strong practitioner who had rushed out from the encirclement of the swords, and their fists collided. Tempest of the Nine Dragons had burst forth an instant before their fists collided, but even after, it was still rushing outwards despite the fact that the entire arm and all the bones of the strong devil practitioner had broken through the back of his shoulders to shoot off in all directions. When Qin Mu left and stabbed a sword into the heart of another person's brows, only then did his previous divine art hit the strong devil practitioner and shattered his chest. The back of his shirt blasted into pieces as 45 divine dragons flew out from his heart, bringing along all his qi and blood. Qin Mu seemed to have entered a world where time flowed slowly. His improvement covered all areas. Blood burst out from the fatal spots of the enemies before the power of their divine arts could even burst forth, turning them into blood flowers slowly blooming in the sky. After the power of the divine arts burst forth, Qin Mu was already no longer there. The divine arts of the enemies had also become abnormally slow in his eyes, and he could see the vital qi transforming into runes before taking the shape of the spell. The explosion of the power of the spell looked abnormally beautiful. The devil divine arts practitioners were all not weaklings, but disciples taught out by devil gods. They were known as the elites among the devils, and besides having great power, their divine arts were also very intricate. Every instant in which the divine arts changed was extremely dazzling and beautiful. Qin Mu admired this kind of beauty very much. Under his 9 heavens divine eyes, the process of the divine arts blooming was a pleasure to watch. It was especially so when fresh blood splattered in midair, forming blood flowers. They decorated the divine arts of the 100 strong devil practitioners, making them seem even more rich and gorgeous. This time, Qin Mu had chosen another path and used a strange method to construct the path of circulation for his technique, reconstructing it. By perfecting Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, he had not merely improved his corporeal body, but also increased the speed of his vital qi circulation, raising the power of his divine arts. He slithered among the 100 strong devil practitioners and executed the most basic sword forms without being garish. However, under the sharp increase in his offensive speed and power, the simple moves had become abnormally effective. In his divine eyes, everyone had become slow. It didn't matter if it were their divine arts or spirit weapons, or the movement of their bodies, they had all become slow. He could clearly see everyone's every flaw. Qin Mu stopped, and his flying swords came whooshing over. They collided with Carefree sword in his hand and vanished. Soon, all 8,000 swords became one. Behind him, countless divine arts exploded, and spirit weapons danced in the sky, destroying the tallest trees of a forest below. Rumblings and explosions rang out incessantly. After a moment, everything returned to silence. Then thumping sounds rang out as corpses of the devil experts collapsed left and right. Qin Mu gently rubbed Carefree sword in his hand, and it turned into a sword pellet. He turned around and looked at the only standing devil expert on the battlefield. It was none other than the person who had suggested to everyone to break him out of his comprehension. At that moment, the devil's legs were shaky, and huge beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. Fear was written all over his face. Qin Mu put away the sword pellet, and his vital qi flowed out to reconstruct the path of vital qi circulation in the divine eyes. However, no matter what, he couldn't enter that state of comprehending Tao. The devil expert looked at him blankly, not daring to move. The more Qin Mu wanted to enter Tao comprehension, the more he couldn't do so. Agitation grew within him, and he shattered the divine eyes formed by his vital qi with a punch. Boom, 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 boom. He became frantic and struck forward furiously. In an instant, a series of thunderclaps rang out, their sound incredibly concentrated. The air in front of him became a wall which slowly grew thicker and thicker until it was visible to the naked eye. The wall was pushed forward by the wind from his fist, causing trees to collapse and rocks to shatter. Among the flying sand and rolling stones, the wall was sent over 10 miles away, and a chasm was plowed open. Qin Mu finished venting his anger and suddenly turned his head around. The corner of his eyes landed on the devil expert. You were the one who told them to break me out from my comprehension? You're very smart, aren't you? The devil expert looked at him in a daze. Then his will to survive suddenly defeated his fear. He let out a scream and rushed into the sky, transforming into a trail of devil chi to escape. Qin Mu shook his head and layers of formation markings appeared in his eyes. The Milky Way in his pupils swirled frantically. Twang! 2 beams of light from his eyes shone, intercepting the devil chi. A head, 2 legs, and half a body fell. Talk some more. Qin Mu left angrily and shattered a rock that was the height of a human with a kick. After a moment, new figures descended from the sky and landed around the battlefield. In the lead was a devil god with a strong aura. Master, Devil Shiju's disciple is dead. King Yan's disciple has also been killed. Devil King Yu's disciple as well. There's also Xiao Qi's disciple here. Devil King Lu Ye's disciple. Master, 6th junior brother has also been harmed. The devil god gave an angry roar, and violent wind blew through the forest. The fog in the sky tumbled before vanishing straight away. You've killed so many elites of my devil race and nearly created a gap in the ranks of our 6 directions and 7 stars realm practitioners. Since you dare to behave so atrociously in front of my people, you can forget about walking out of the devil territory. Pass down my orders. Release the Yudu divine dogs to search for him. Spare no effort to find him. A devil expert of celestial being realm hesitated for a moment. Master Fu Riluo's orders were that if we're able to capture him alive, we should capture him alive. If we can't, it's best to leave a complete corpse. Respectable King has said that the body of this human holds a big secret. The devil god swept a cold gaze over, and the devil expert immediately shut his mouth. He hurriedly passed down the orders. Qin Mu heard roars from afar, and his heart shook. He couldn't help muttering that the devils were all brave and good in battle. They were all battle maniacs and liked to show off their martial prowess. The best way to do it was to kill strong practitioners, so among those that were chasing after Qin Mu, the most excited ones were the experts of 7 stars realm. However, in a single battle, most of the devil god's disciples of 7-star realm had died in his hands. In that case, what level strong practitioners would be chasing after him now? He wasn't considered far from the front lines, and the number of strategic towns and soldiers grew gradually. From them, Qin Mu soon how powerful were the devils. Large black dogs were leaping through the mountains behind him as though they were flying. They carried 5 to 6 strong devil practitioners while sniffing around for his trail. From afar, they looked like small hills with 2 heads. Their eyes were like big red lanterns, and their bodies were filled with muscles. They didn't have just 2 eyes on each head, but 3. The one on the forehead even shot out beams of red light from time to time, scanning the surroundings. Qin Mu's expression became grim. Numerous devil dogs had already found his scent and were gathering together to head toward him. I need to poison them. Only with that can I escape. He flipped through his Taotai sack and found some medicinal herbs. This time, he didn't use his vital chi to transform into a pill furnace to refine the pills. Instead, he took out a sealed furnace and refined his poison there. Qin Mu held his breath and sealed all of his pores. After thinking about it, he took off his shoes and opened up the sealed furnace. He carefully took out some poison and scattered it on his shoes while thinking. Even though I don't have the time to refine poison that could poison a devil god, poisoning the devil dogs shouldn't be a problem. He threw down his shoes and left barefooted. After a moment, tiger roars shook the land, and Qin Mu hurriedly turned back to take a look. He saw a god's aura spreading out as a black tiger tore apart the devil dogs and the strong devil practitioners that were on them. Brother Tiger, I can smell Cult Master's scent. the dragon Qilin said in the distance. His voice was filled with delight. Come follow me. Cult Master's shoes are even here. What a smelly shoe. Crap. I'm poisoned. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 558. Half Moon Senior Tiger. It's Fatty Dragon. Senior Brother Tiger and the rest are also here. They have come to find me. Qin Mu hurriedly sprinted back while refining the antidote. From afar, he could see the dragon Qilin swaying and vomiting white foaming from his mouth. His body then went stiff, and his legs stuck up straight into the sky as he collapsed to the ground. Qin Mu rushed over at his full speed from 300 yards away. The moment he finished the antidote, he flicked his fingers. The vital chi furnace exploded, and the antidote flew into the dragon Qilin's mouth. Qin Mu's hand techniques changed rapidly as he landed near Fatty Dragon. In a blink of an eye, countless mudras surrounded the dragon Qilin's body as though he had grown 1,000 arms. He smacked the body of the big fatty to spread the medicinal energy as fast as possible so the dragon Qilin's corporeal body wouldn't be hurt. Seems like he has gotten fatter again. When Qin Mu's palm landed on the dragon Qilin's body, he felt the rebound of his fat, which made it hard to execute his hand techniques. Upon noticing it, he wondered in bewilderment. I didn't leave him too many pills, so how did he get so fat? Could I have wronged him? Is he really the type that could grow fat even if he only drinks water? Sanghua, Ling Yuxiu, Si Yunxiang, and Hu Linger were all nearby. When they saw a person rushing over, they had planned to defend against him. But once they recognized Qin Mu, they were delighted and waited quietly for him to treat the dragon Qilin. Qin Mu's vital chi steamed as he smacked the big fatty countless times to spread the medicinal energy to all parts of his body. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief and take out a towel to wipe off the sweat on his forehead. Luckily, the poison I made this time wasn't particularly powerful. The dragon Qilin stared at him with eyes wide open and full of grievance. He had a look of having nothing left to be worried about. Qin Mu let out a sigh and consoled him. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's not a big problem. You will be able to stand after a while. Your sense of smell will be damaged temporarily, but it will be fine after a day or two. Chest. Don't eat him, he's not dead yet. He's really not dead. And you couldn't eat him even if he was dead, so spit him out. Why have you guys come? The chest reluctantly spat the dragon Qilin out. Hu Linger created a whirlwind to send Qin Mu's smelly shoes far away. She jumped onto the head of the dragon Qilin and said with a smile, After you went missing, Senior Twigger informed Imperial Preceptor, but he said that you're fine and won't die so easily. However, he still ordered someone to inform Heavenly Saint Cult, and Saint Xiang brought us over. This girl couldn't pronounce tiger properly. The black tiger god examined Qin Mu, then opened the youth's eyes to take a look inside. Only after such an examination did he relax. Since we entered the territory of the devils, the princess and the saintess have kept trying to contact your primordial spirit, but they never got a reply. We were afraid of disturbing you, so we stopped doing that after a while. We originally planned to go to the ominous land, but before we even reached there, we met numerous devils heading east. They spoke about you heading there, so we tracked them. The dragon Qilin was most familiar with you, so he could track your scent, and that's how we found you. Qin Mu pondered over it before saying, When you guys contacted me, I should have still been in the ominous land. That place is very strange, which is probably why I didn't detect the primordial spirits of Saintess and Sister Xiu. You guys didn't meet any danger since you entered the devil territory. Ling Yuxiu picked the dragon Qilin and placed him on the chest. Sister Sanghua is very powerful. It's all thanks to her that we were able to avoid all the strategically placed towns of the devils. Besides, most devils were chasing you, and there we've even heard rumors saying that you heavily injured Fu Riluo. The majority of the devil gods have gathered in the main camp to protect their leader. Make sure that no one takes the chance to sneak in and kill him. Qin Mu burst out laughing. Isn't the rumor describing me as a bit too terrifying? Fu Riluo was actually hurt by a curse which had nothing to do with me. He has indeed been injured, but he should be fine by now. Sanghua looked around and saw numerous devils heading over toward them. She hurriedly said, Senior Tiger just massacred many devils, and it will attract a devil god or two, so we can't stay here for long. Let's leave this place first and talk in detail later. Senior Tiger, your body is too big and will attract the attention of the devil gods. We need to trouble you. The black tiger god heard this and immediately shrunk his body to the size of a small tiger that was a foot tall. The girls looked at one another and all petted it, feeling rather gratified. The black tiger god paid no attention to them. Could Senior Brother Tiger have relied on this to reach the depths of the devil territory? Qin Mu wondered. They began to walk east, and the chest immediately followed after them. The black tiger god went next to Qin Mu and raised his head to look at him. What was that about Fu Riluo being injured by a curse? This rumor shouldn't be fake. But that guy is a true devil, the overlord of the devil race, so how could he be injured by a curse? It's my jade pendant. There's a curse hidden in it. As for what's the exact situation, I do not know it. Saint Woodcutter knows, but he didn't tell me. Soon, the dragon Qilin was finally able to move, but his limbs were still wobbly, so he couldn't crawl up. He said in grievance, "Cult Master, I'm hungry. If you eat spirit pills now, they will agitate your stomach, and you will only vomit them out." Qin Mu immediately explained. The dragon Qilin was silent for a moment, then said, "Cult Master." This little dragon risked his life to search for Cult Master in the devil territory. Yet you harmed me. Qin Mu blinked, but didn't say anything. Still hungry, the dragon Qilin said. Feeling helpless, Qin Mu could only take out a few spirit herbs to match with fire element divine vitality pills. I like scarlet fire spirit pills. I don't like the taste of fire element divine vitality pills. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, but suppressed his anger. He placed aside the pills he had matched and found the herbs for scarlet fire spirit pills. He finished refining them, and the dragon Qilin opened his mouth, waiting for him to feed him. Veins popped out on Qin Mu's forehead, but he threw 2 pills over, and the dragon Qilin crunched them. The taste isn't right, it's not as delicious, the dragon Qilin said suspiciously. The toxin injured the nerves that control your smell and taste, so food doesn't feel the same when you eat it, Qin Mu explained. Cult Master, give me the spirit pills. I'll eat them when my senses recover. Qin Mu handed the scarlet fire spirit pills that were done to him. The dragon Qilin hid them inside the chest, then said weakly, I'm still hungry. I want to try fire element divine vitality pills. Maybe they won't be as hard to swallow. Qin Mu took out the herbs he had matched moments before and refined a furnace of fire element divine vitality pills, and the dragon Qilin tried too. The taste seems to be much better. They aren't as bad. Cult Master, can you refine 2 more furnaces? Eating so much. Be careful of getting stuff to death. Look at how fat you've gotten. Even the chest can't carry you anymore. Qin Mu said with his anger finally bursting forth. The dragon Qilin looked as if he had nothing to live for and said resentfully, I'm poisoned, and I don't know if I can even taste the flavor of the scarlet fire spirit pills again. It's a pity my mother left early, and Patriarch has also left. Qin Mu couldn't bear to see him like this and refined another 2 furnaces of pills for him. The dragon Qilin no longer muttered after that. Upon sneaking a glance back, Qin Mu saw that the fellow didn't eat many pills. He secretly opened up the chest and stored the excess inside. What has Fatty Dragon experienced during these days I wasn't around? Qin Mu was puzzled. The dragon Qilin lay on the chest quietly. He took out a book and grabbed a brush with his claws, then carefully wrote something. Qin Mu fell back to take a look, but the dragon Qilin hurriedly covered up. Smiling, Qin Mu said, Fatty Dragon also knows how to work hard. Linger, you should learn more from him. Hu Linger had been hugging her tails and licking their fur clean. When she heard his words, she said seriously, I've been studying along Grandpa Def these days, and he praised me for my knowledge. The black tiger god jumped onto the chest and moved over to look at the writings. The dragon Qilin didn't dare to be arrogant and let him sit between his front claws. The black tiger god took a look and burst out laughing. This also works? Of course it does, the dragon Qilin said with a serious expression. I have basically mastered the path of controlling humans. This technique of mine will definitely shine in the future. The black tiger shook his head. You spend too much effort on these little things and don't use them on the right path. For example, there's completely no need to eat Scarlet Fire Spirit Pills or Fire Element Divine Vitality Pills. Cultivating by yourself is more useful than anything. Has Brother Tiger eaten spirit pills before? The dragon Xianxia asked. The black tiger shook his head again. My lord said that cultivating by oneself is the true cultivation. No one has given me any spirit pills before. The dragon Xianxia took out a Fire Element Divine Vitality Pill. Try this. The black tiger god ate one and said in astonishment. Such a good taste? So much better than normal food. The dragon Xianxia sneered at him. Scarlet Fire Spirit Pills taste even better. Try a Scarlet Fire Spirit Pill. The black tiger god ate one, and his body shook. He couldn't help the tears falling from his eyes. Now you know how good they are, right? Because you didn't learn my technique. That's why your lord is lazy. Your own cultivation is the true cultivation. That's because you're not hardworking and have too few tricks. You're being subdued by him instead of you being the one who is subduing him. Only by learning my human rearing scriptures can you eat well. The black tiger god looked at Qianmu and said with a smile, Junior brother, Scarlet Fire Spirit Pills indeed have a nice taste. Can you give me a few furnaces? Qianmu looked at him in bewilderment. Senior brother, you're already a demon god, so why do you want to eat? The taste is not too bad. I can eat them as a snack. Qianmu frowned and asked patiently, what are the attributes of senior brother's demon vital qi? Gold and water. Qianmu calculated for a moment and wrote down a recipe. This is for gold water mixed vitality pill. It has gold qi and water qi inside, which can raise your gold and water vital qi. I also used complementing spirit herbs to increase the fragrance and flavor. Senior brother, me making the spirit pills for you is not a solution. You're a god, so you make them yourself. I will teach you how to refine. The black tiger god was delighted and said with a smile, begging someone is never better than relying on oneself. If I can learn to refine pills, I indeed won't need to trouble you. Qianmu taught him how to refine gold water mixed vitality pills and gave him some herbs. The black tiger god was incredibly intelligent and managed to learn quickly. He refined the pills pretty well. Not long later, the black tiger god came to him to ask for some more medicinal ingredients. Qianmu gave him them. When the next day arrived, Qianmu had a feeling that his demon god senior brother had become fatter. He wondered if it was just his misconception. However, when the little black tiger lay next to the dragon Xianxia, he didn't look fat at all, so it was probably just a trick of the light before. Tales of Herding Gods. Chapter 559, Divine Calculation. Senior Twigger feels even nicer to touch like this, Hu Linger said to Qianmu with a serious face. The little fox had gone to touch twice, and she felt that he was quite chubby. Qianmu was slightly worried that his senior brother won't be able to stop himself and grow fat from eating too many gold water mixed vitality pills. However, the black tiger god was his senior brother and had followed Saint Woodcutter much longer. On top of that, he was a famous god, so as a junior brother, Qianmu wasn't really in a place to say anything. Even if he asked the black tiger god to eat fewer mixed vitality pills, he reckoned he wouldn't listen to him. The black tiger god listened more to the dragon Xianxia than him. I should let Saint Woodcutter have the headache. Qianmu turned around and saw trails of devil qi rushing into the sky. Some of it was in the form of lotuses and some were like clouds. There were also some shaped like peacocks and devil gods. All of these were apparitions formed by the vital qi of the devil experts. To be able to create them, they had to be experts of celestial being realm or even above. Yet the strong devil practitioners didn't rush over to kill them. It was as if they were waiting for something. An expert of divine bridge realm has arrived. Qianmu focused his gaze and suddenly saw a divine bridge stretching dozens of miles across the sky. A devil god primordial spirit walked through it with the celestial palaces of the devil path above him. This was the apparition of a strong practitioner of divine bridge realm. In eternal peace, those on divine bridge realm were existences of cult master level. Their abilities had been the greatest, but that was in the past. After Qianmu spread the method to repair the divine bridge and enter the celestial palaces, One could only be considered an expert of the cult master level once they became a god. However, the divine arts practitioners of Divine Bridge Realm were still extremely powerful existences. If they gave chase, only the Black Tiger God could protect the group from harm. In a bit, Qin Mu saw a second divine bridge, followed by a third and a fourth. More and more strong practitioners of Divine Bridge Realm appeared behind them. They had all kinds of primordial spirits, and their locations on the divine bridges were different, representing different levels of cultivation. The primordial spirits looked at them from afar as beams of devil light kept sweeping past them recklessly. Yet even though so many strong practitioners of Divine Bridge Realm had come, they still didn't attack. They're waiting for an even stronger existence to descend. Qin Mu narrowed his eyes and looked away while thinking. The only ones stronger than the Divine Bridge practitioners will be devil gods who had entered the celestial palaces. It's just that there's no way to know if the devil god that's hurrying over has crossed Southern Heavenly Gate or not. He took a look at the Black Tiger God who was lying on the chest with the dragon Xilan. Ever since the two had found a common topic, they had become lazy. The Black Tiger God was always lying on the chest and whispering something with the dragon Xilan. Qin Mu felt an uneasiness brewing in his heart. Hope the one that comes hasn't crossed Southern Heavenly Gate yet. With a worried expression, Xianxia said in a low voice, "Brother Cult Master, if we continue heading forward, we'll soon reach the front lines. There are numerous strong devil practitioners there." Qin Mu's mind shook. He instantly knew what the devils were waiting for. There are numerous strong practitioners in front of us, and with the pursuers chasing behind, they will be able to pincer us, making it hard for us to take care of both our front and back. The devils behind are not waiting for the devil god since they're among them already, waiting for us to fall into the trap. Qin Mu composed himself and came to the side of the chest. The Black Tiger God and the Dragon Xilan were muttering something, but when they saw him coming, they immediately shut their mouths. Qin Mu told them about his guess and said solemnly, "Senior Brother Tiger, the more we go forward, the closer we get to the front lines, and the more dangerous it gets for us. When we come close enough, there will definitely be a devil god that will lead an army to block our path. Meanwhile, from the back, another devil god will block our retreat. If we are pincered between the two sides, we will be vanquished." The Black Tiger God stood up like a huge cat and said solemnly, "Great strategy. However, they're looking down on me. I had followed my lord to conquer the north and south and experienced countless battles. I've earned fame by bathing in the blood of my enemies. After my lord turned into a rock, I had also fallen into slumber. Looks like these devil brats have forgotten about my awe. Don't be afraid. When we're 1,000 miles away from the front lines, call me." Qin Mu opened his mouth, but didn't speak. The Black Tiger God lay down again, then raised his head after a moment. "Do you still have any spirit herbs? The ones you gave me were all refined into pills. Give me some more. I can kill better with a full stomach." Qin Mu took out some spirit herbs from his Taotai sack, just enough for one furnace. He handed them over and said, "Senior Brother Tiger, don't eat too much. Be careful of becoming like Fatty Dragon." The Black Tiger God laughed, looking rather conceited. "You're underestimating me. I can dissolve these spirit pills just by cultivating and won't have any excess flab. I know my limits. I shall show you how awe-inspiring I am later." "Sister Hua, how far are we from the front lines?" Qin Mu inquired. Xianxia took out a geographic map and searched around it. She took out a ruler and measured. "This is Cloud Gathering Mountain. We are still 4,000 miles away." Qin Mu looked at the ratio and measured the distance himself. He shook his head and said, 4,261 miles. "Why do you need to be so accurate for?" Xianxia asked with a smile. Qin Mu shook his head. "It's because the algebra of your Supreme Emperor Heaven is so lousy. Even your son was forged so crookedly that it's unbearable to look at." Of course, he couldn't say this directly in her face. Ling Yuxiu and Si Yunxiang called Xianxia over the moment she was free. The three girls chatted noisily and exchanged pointers on the paths, skills, and divine arts of Supreme Emperor Heaven and Eternal Peace. Ling Yuxiu and Si Yunxiang sincerely sought knowledge from Sang Hua about the method of cultivating to a young true god, and Sang Hua told them everything she knew without holding back. She also asked them about the spells of eternal peace, and the two girls taught her the divine art that was recently created in Eternal Peace, Primordial Spirit Guide. Primordial Spirit Guide needs dual cultivation, so this technique should only be used between husband and wife, Sang Hua said in astonishment. Ling Yuxiu smiled at her. Nonsense. As long as the primordial spirits are able to resonate, anyone will be able to cultivate. Even numerous monks and Taoists in eternal peace have cultivated it. Sang Hua was dumbfounded. After a moment, she asked suspiciously, even monks and Taoists have cultivated? You too have also cultivated it. I cultivated it with the one who herds cows, Ling Yuxiu said. Sang Hua was slightly disappointed and jealous. She looked at Si Yunxiang and asked, what about Sister Xiang? Si Yunxiang smiled at her. I have also cultivated with Cult Master. His primordial spirit is very strong, and you will improve very fast if you dual cultivate your primordial spirit with him. Sang Hua's eyes went wide, and she cried out, how can you, that's not right. Primordial spirit dual cultivation clearly only allows one Tao partner. As she almost went into a frenzy, Si Yunxiang said bewitchingly, once you dual cultivate with Cult Master, you will understand. His primordial spirit is very strong. Sang Hua blushed and said with a low voice, the rules our Supreme Emperor Heaven have regarding primordial spirit dual cultivation is different from those of your eternal peace. Primordial spirit dual cultivation here is a taboo. Only husband and wife can dual cultivate. Even being engaged is not enough. Ling Yuxiu and Si Yunxiang looked at each other and seemed to know the other's thoughts. The rules of Supreme Emperor Heaven are too old, but this is not your fault. Every place has its own rules. For example, all of West Earth's women are little vixens. To pave the road, Imperial Preceptor had brought 1,000 demonists and caused quite some trouble. Qin Mu went up high to look far into the distance. He saw incredibly thick devil qi rolling 1,000 miles away from them. It was like a high wall that stretched 10,000 miles. The devil's main camp in the front lines. He observed with 9 heavens' divine eyes and saw all kinds of variegated and gorgeous vision. They were apparitions formed by the experts of Celestial Being Realm, Life and Death Realm, and Divine Bridge Realm in the army of the devils. Sister Hua, give me the geographical map. She took out the map, and Qin Mu used his vital qi as a ruler to measure it precisely. He turned back to look at the pursuers and the devil qi which was becoming thicker and thicker. His gaze flickered. There's still 1,100 miles. Senior Brother Tiger told me to call him at 1,000 miles, but he seems to have become even fatter during this period of time. Qin Mu turned his head around and looked at the black tiger god on the chest. He said solemnly, Senior Brother Tiger, we are 1,000 miles away from the front lines. The little tiger leaped from the chest and laughed. Stay here and look at my methods. Once he said so, he rushed towards the pursuers behind them. Qin Mu looked at the black tiger god and saw him running faster and faster. As he ran, his corporeal body changed, and in not even a breath's time, he went from a little black tiger that was a foot tall to a behemoth that was like a mountain. He was awe-inspiring, although his tummy seemed a little bit too big. When the black tiger god ran, he moved from 4 legs on the ground to only the 2 hind ones exerting force. All kinds of runes spread throughout his body like an armor covering his entire being. 2 huge hammers appeared in his front paws. In a breath's time, the black tiger god had already collided with the pursuers, and the bones of countless strong devil practitioners were broken. Their bodies flipped in the sky and fell down limply. A devil god had indeed hidden himself, and he rushed into the sky at that moment with a battle halberd to face the 2 huge hammers of the black tiger god. The latter was incomparably brave, but the devil god wasn't weak as well. The instant the 2 of them clashed, Qin Mu immediately saw a mountain top floating up after being slashed. Let's go quickly, Qin Mu said rapidly. Advance 100 miles forward. Fatty dragon. Come down from the chest. Sang Hua didn't understand what he was saying, but she still heeded his words, bringing the chest to hurry forward. The dragon Qilin jumped and followed after them. Behind them, there were numerous devil experts that had not died in the hands of the Black Tiger God. They immediately left the Black Tiger God behind to chase after the small group. Meanwhile, in front of the main camp, the battle between the Black Tiger God and the Devil God created ripples that alarmed the devil experts in the vicinity. Immediately, Devil Qi separated from the mass above the main camp and surged towards Qin Mu. It was most likely a strong practitioner of the devil race rushing to pincer them. Qin Mu sprinted 100 miles with everyone, then shouted, "Halt!" Behind. A world-shaking explosion suddenly rang out as the Black Tiger God and the Devil God flashed past while dueling. With a roar from the tiger, mountains and vegetations were sent flying, and random rocks rushed into the sky. The Black Tiger God arrived frantically, and his huge hammers smashed the strong practitioners chasing after Qin Mu one after another. Qin Mu saw the situation and immediately said, "Retreat 100 miles. Sanghua, Ling Yuxiu, and the rest didn't understand, but they still sprinted backward according to his words. After the Black Tiger God killed the pursuers, he leaped over their heads and faced the numerous devil experts that were chasing them. The devil experts were led by a devil god, but their battle formation was disrupted by the Black Tiger God. The two gods started fighting while the rest of the experts took a detour around them and rushed toward Qin Mu and the rest. After Qin Mu brought everyone back 100 miles, he stopped and said solemnly, "We should be safe now." After a moment, the primordial spirits of the strong devil practitioners arrived, and their divine arts rushed over from afar. Everyone's expressions changed slightly, but a huge hammer came flying out of nowhere, smashing the divine arts and the primordial spirits of the strong devil practitioners into smithereens. The Black Tiger God's body flashed by them, and he grabbed the huge hammer that was flying towards everyone. He shook it forcefully and laughed loudly. "I believe I did not disappoint. Everyone, climb onto my back and follow me into the enemy's main camp. I'll bring all of you back to Li City." Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and thought to himself, "Brother Tiger has indeed grown fatter these days. His weight has increased and his speed has decreased by 10%, so I added an extra distance of 100 miles, and looks like I was right to do that." Tales of Herding Gods. Chapter 560, Yudu's Messenger of Death. The Black Tiger laid down on the ground, and Qin Mu hurriedly threw the chest onto his back. He then carried Hu Linger up with him while the three girls and the dragon Qilin followed after. The Black Tiger God immediately began sprinting and passed the mountains in a flash. His speed was unmatched. Qin Mu lay close to the tiger's back and listened to the tiger god's breathing. It gradually grew faster, and he thought, "I was right. Senior Brother Tiger's lifetime of cultivation has been ruined by Fatty Dragon in one day. He has been brainwashed by Fatty Dragon. Hope he doesn't grow too fat, or else I won't be able to explain myself to Sacred Teacher. Right? It's still unknown if we can break through the enemy camp and return to Li City." Right then, a sound akin to that of a huge dam crumbling and water flooding out deafened him. Qin Mu ignored the wind that was blowing in his face and looked forward. He saw sword lights tearing apart the devil Qi and ripping a huge hole in the devil's main camp. What followed after were big calabashes floating in midair with divine arts practitioners around them. They executed their divine arts, and lightning poured out from the calabashes, raining down on the devil's main camp. Behind the lightning calabashes were countless sword pellets. Tens of thousands of them were swirling furiously. After the lightning strikes, countless swords rained down on the devil's main camp. Behind the sword pellets, there were waves and waves of flying ships. True origin cannons were installed on them, and with the cannon beams plowing the ground, the main camp was destroyed. "It's the army of eternal peace." Qin Mu's spirits rose swiftly. It was Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's sword light that broke the camp. This fellow always secures his gains with the safest method. That devil god who rushed out of the main camp to kill us should have been the commander of the main camp. The moment he left, Imperial Preceptor saw the opening and took advantage of it to break the formation. Only Imperial Preceptor could be so sneaky. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's sword skill had entered the path, and it cultivated his Tao heart. No opening of an enemy could escape his eyes nor his sword lights. It was the same for the formation of the enemies. He had turned his sword path into the path of war, and it was successful in every battle. Qin Mu relaxed. Even though the Black Tiger God was already gasping for breath, he was still able to bring them out of the devil territory. At the front, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Duke Wei were opening a path for the flying ships behind them. The numerous soldiers with the lightning calabashes lowered themselves and landed on the flying ships. Meanwhile, in the back, there was an army formed by countless strange beasts and divine arts practitioners. The Black Tiger God rushed into the battlefield and shook his body, flinging everyone away. He stood up and grabbed his two huge hammers to spin like a windmill, smashing the enemies around him like a storm. Boom! When the Black Tiger smashed his hammer against the ground, its boundless power swept in all directions. Countless devils were blown into the sky. The Black Tiger God attacked the enemy's battle formations while roaring. "You guys go back first. I shall stay and digest the spirit pills, using up the excess fats in my tummy so that my lord would recognize me." After saying that, the demon god destroyed everything around him and went to the front lines to take the lead. He destroyed an enemy formation and opened his mouth wide to blow away a devil god that was rushing over with an intense beam of white light. It extended for 100 miles before gradually fading away. Qin Mu was dumbfounded. He turned to look at the round and fat dragon Qilin that was thrown into the sky. He suddenly felt a pang of sorrow in his heart. Sacred Teacher's mount is still better. Even if he is slightly gluttonous, he still knows to train and maintain his figure. He won't delay his cultivation. The dragon Qilin was also dumbfounded. When he took a glance and saw Qin Mu's sorrowful expression, he sunk into his thoughts. A flying ship flew over from the sky and brushed past their bodies. A young general stood on its bow. With a wave of his hand, golden lotuses came into being. They lifted everyone up and brought them to the ship. "Qin Feiyue, little General Qin," Qin Mu greeted in a hurry, full of astonishment. Qin Feiyu wore a suit of armor, but he still bowed slightly to return the greeting. "Cult Master Qin, Princess Xiao. This general is wearing armor, so it's inconvenient for me to greet." From behind him, a person rushed out. It was Qin Yu. There was a young dragon coiled around his body. Qin Yu pays his respects to Cult Master Qin, Princess Xiao, and Saintess Xiang, he swiftly greeted. The two brothers had been born in the Qin family of General of Heavenly Strategies, and they were part of Imperial Preceptor's many disciples. They followed him to cultivate for a period of time. They had their success and assumed positions in the army. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had many disciples, and most of them entered the army and took up high positions. Ling Yuxiu's nature was open-minded, so she had made friends with a lot of heroes which were disciples of Imperial Preceptor. The first time Qin Mu had met Ling Yuxiu, she had entered Great Ruins with Qin Feiyue, planning to draw the terrain to conquer Great Ruins at a later date. The young dragon on Qin Yu's body raised its head in curiosity and examined Qin Mu. It suddenly slithered down and climbed onto him. It rubbed its horns against Qin Mu's face and gently cried out, "Maha!" Qin Yu was stunned. He hurriedly took out his dragon bead and tried to summon his young dragon back, but it was reluctant to leave Qin Mu. Qin Yu's heart was on tenterhooks. I was already no match for him in Imperial College. I got beaten by him several times, and after he became the Heavenly Devil Cult Master, I was even less of match for him. Is my dragon also going to be snatched away by him? Qin Mu plucked the little dragon and examined him over and over again. He then asked in astonishment, "Could this be the true dragon from Surging River Dragon Palace?" Qin Feiyue nodded. Imperial Preceptor called Little Poison King and saved its life. He then gave it to my brother. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly, and he asked with a smile, "Junior brother Qin Yu, can you lend me this little dragon of yours for a few days?" Qin Yu hesitated for a moment, and Qin Feiyue said with a smile, "Cult Master's position is extraordinary, and he's the Grand Chancellor of Heavenly Saint Academy. How could he lie to you?" Qin Yu could only nod then, and Qin Mu said with a smile, "Junior brother Qin Yu, I won't borrow it for nothing. I will give you something good." After I return this small dragon to you, you will understand. The young dragon shrunk and climbed onto his earlobe. It hung there like an earring. Qin Mu looked into the distance and saw the army of Supreme Emperor taking the chance when Eternal Peace Army broke through the enemy's formation to rush over, intercepting the reinforcements of the Devil Army. They were like two punches that crashed ruthlessly on the enemy's vital points. Around the group, the flying ships were led by young officers into the fight. Cannon fire plowed through the ranks below, and the divine arts practitioners on the ship executed sword pellets. Their divine arts bombarded the ground. Once the land was cleared, strong workers paved the land while the strange beast army and soldiers massacred any devils that had survived the main assault. The officers on the ships are also Imperial Preceptor's disciples, Ling Yuxiu said after looking around. The disciples of Imperial Preceptor are usually honorary directorates of River Tomb Academy. They frequently give lessons over there, and most of them are experts from the army. Look, there are more familiar people over there. It's senior and junior brothers from Imperial College. Qin Mu looked where she pointed and saw Wei Yong, Chen Wanyun, and the rest, so he immediately waved at them. However, they were focusing on executing their spirit weapons to bombard the ground and didn't see. After a moment, the flying ships dispersed the enemy's formation. The Devil Army was blown into pieces, and with the strange beasts trampling their battle's lines, it was a very bitter fight for the devils. Qin Feiyue ordered the flying ships to stop and end their cannon fire. He wanted for the spirit weapons to continue attacking the enemies that were escaping in all directions while they secured the land. He explained to Qin Mu, "The reason why our Eternal Peace Army is the vanguard is because the algebra skills of Supreme Emperor Heaven are too weak. Their formations are loose and normal. Imperial Preceptor felt their impact wasn't enough, so our Eternal Peace Army was sent first to break the Devil's formation. Imperial Preceptor is a great talent. The algebra of Supreme Emperor Heaven is indeed somewhat weaker," Qin Mu said. Sang Hua blushed and lowered her head in silence. Even though Supreme Emperor Heaven's algebra is very weak, their divine arts are very strong. They have what our eternal peace lacks in the path of cultivation, so we can only rely on battle formations to charge, while the close combat fights will have to rely on the divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven. Qin Feiyue executed his sword pellets and looked down at the devils from above. He sighed ruefully. "I thought I was extraordinary in Celestial Being Realm, but after encountering these divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven, my eyes were opened. With my current cultivation, I can't even be ranked here." Imperial Preceptor ordered that in this battle, no one is to leave the ship to fight on their own. This is because on the same realm, our soldiers are no match for the devils. The battle lasted for a long time, until the sun in the sky went out. Only then did both sides beat the gong to recall troops. "We have clearly won the war, so why do we have to retreat? Why can't we just take this chance when the enemies are escaping to enter the city?" Sang Hua asked in bewilderment. "Our military strength isn't enough. If we rush into the city, we'll only scatter our soldiers, giving the devils a chance to break us." Imperial Preceptor chose to retreat right after achieving victory because he is using the method of nibbling away at the devils. By continuously doing so, the devils will be weakened until they're all exhausted. In that case, they won't be able to pose any threat. Qin Mu recalled Saint Woodcutter saying that Supreme Emperor Heaven was undefendable, and he couldn't help becoming worried. Saint Woodcutter wouldn't speak nonsense, so since he said it couldn't be defended, it really meant that it was impossible to guard it. The devils would definitely not follow the battle plan Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor hoped they would use. Fu Riluo would definitely have other ideas. In the darkness on the battlefield, numerous will-o'-the-wisps suddenly appeared from another world. They were lanterns on small boats sailing out of Yudu with elders whose faces were blurry. They were there to fetch the heroes that had died. No matter if they were human or devil, as long as they became ghosts, they would be fetched by Yudu. In the meantime, the army retreating below moved silently, ignoring the messengers of death. It seemed that they were used to this sight. Qin Mu stood on the bow of the flying ship, overlooking the battlefield. He couldn't help sighing ruefully inside his heart, but he didn't say anything. At that moment, A small boat sailed over in front of the flying ship. The elder in it stood up and raised the lantern to shine on Qin Mu. Qin Fengqing, you have disturbed Yudu. Earth Count invites you for a visit to talk about the cause and effects of your actions. Astonished internally, Qin Mu said with a smile, "Who is Qin Fengqing?" "Elder, you are mistaken." The lantern shone on his face, but the elder behind it didn't say anything. Suddenly, black light flashed, and the black tiger god appeared at the bow of the ship, blocking Qin Mu behind himself. Messengers of death only care about the matters of the dead. When have you started to manage the matters of the living as well? The face behind the lantern was blurry. Yudu has its rules. Yudu does not look into the matter in the world of the living unless a person from there disrupts the order of Yudu. Yudu then has to take control of the situation. Qin Fengqing released 48,000 souls from Yudu and broke the rules of Yudu. 15 days ago, we came to inform and invite him to Yudu to talk about it. But he has a treasure which blocks the messengers of death. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor walked over and asked in a solemn voice, "What if I don't let you take him? Numerous worlds have been destroyed because of that," the elder said from behind the lantern. Qin Mu couldn't help remembering what he'd seen before. Dutian Devil King wailing in the darkness and shedding sorrowful tears. Imperial Preceptor, Senior Brother Tiger, no need to say more. I'll go with him.